Yes, I'm starting the live stream.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, it is 6:06 and we are live.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it was really nice that you all came to celebrate my birthday with me.
Happy birthday to you. Happy
Thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to take the liberty. Well, I was just going to do a shout out to my wonderful husband, Louis Bristol, who is watching. Tonight's our 10th anniversary. We've been together for 22 years, but I was a reluctant bride. So it's our 10th anniversary, and I just want to thank him for his understanding and his patience, because here I am tonight. Thank you so much, my sweetheart. Thank you. You guys are sweet. I really appreciate it. Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Betty Resch on her birthday.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga is absent. Commissioner Kimberly Stokes.
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Okay, we're going to have the invocation led or moment of silence led by Vice Mayor McVoy.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And maybe you can join me in an invocation to encourage us to, as we think about governing at the local scale, the municipal scale, the county, the state, and the country. Let us take a long view of it. Let us make sure that we're familiar with history, that we learn from past history, our own and other countries. Let us be very open-eyed about the things that are happening around us and look for early indicators of things that might be threats to our democracy that we all hold very dear and that some have made very major sacrifices to protect it. Let us do our part as individuals watching the things that happen, asking if they are truly for the greater good of our state, of our nation, of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Don't go down. Don't sit down yet. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice. Thank you. Well done, everybody. It's nice to have it's nice to hear those young voices in there too. Okay, are there any additions, deletions, or reorderings?
It is my understanding, Madam Mayor, that we're going to move the city attorney's report up to follow the city manager's report.
Thank you. Anything else?
That is all I have for this evening, unless anybody else has something.
I'm asking my colleagues and nothing else?
No.
All right, can we approve the agenda as changed?
Motion to approve the agenda as changed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
sorry, who was the second? It was like a tag team there.
I
I'll take
believe
it this time, I guess. Diaz.
we'll give it to Diaz this time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move what should be the very last thing of the agenda up to almost the very first thing. But first, we're going to have presentations. So we'll put the city attorneys just before the city manager's report. Okay. All right, so the proclamations, a proclamation declaring May 2023 as Historic Preservation Month. And Erin Sita, who is our Assistant Director of Community Sustainability, was here just a minute ago. but she left, or she'll be back. All right, I'm going to read it. Whereas the city of Lake Worth Beach has adopted a historic preservation program that is designed to preserve, protect, and bring awareness to our unique historic resources, which represent defining elements of the city's cultural and social identity, and that serve as visible reminders of the city's vibrant heritage. And whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, while also revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character. And whereas cities and neighborhoods, including those that are historic, are never static, and historic preservation takes a holistic approach, considering the built environment's historic integrity, character, and usefulness while allowing for compatible new development. And whereas historic preservation is relevant for communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals who help to preserve the tangible aspects of our built environment that have shaped us as a people. And whereas People Saving Places is the theme for National Preservation Month of 2023, co-sponsored by the City of Lake Worth Beach and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And whereas the City of Lake Worth Beach continues to demonstrate its commitment to preserving our past while planning for an economically and ecologically sustainable and resilient future, now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Historic Preservation Month and Lake Worth Beach Historic Preservation Month and National Historic Preservation Month, and call upon the people of the City of Lake Worth Beach to join in their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in the special observance. In witness whereof I have set my hand and caused the seal of the Lake Worth Beach, Florida, to be affixed to the second day of May 2023. And we have Erin Sita here. And Erin is the Assistant Director of Community Sustainability, and she will bring this back to her department. We thank you all for the hard work that you do there. Would you like to say something? Why don't you go to the,
We just want to introduce our hardworking historic preservation panel. We have.
why don't you turn on the microphone?
I'm usually loud.
There you go.
And can you have people not block the cameras in the back, please? Thank you.
In the back are Annie Greening and Yen Taratha, who are our wonderful historic preservation staff. And they're the folks you reach at the email historicpreservation@lakeworthbeachfl.gov if anybody has any questions about historic preservation in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Vice Mayor McBoy is going to read that one.
Proclamation, whereas everyone experiences time of stress and struggles in their lives, and 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 youth, ages 13 to 18, experience serious mental illness. And whereas 60% of adults and 50% of youth do not receive the treatment necessary for their mental health needs due to limited or no knowledge of the need, or to barriers to care or fear and shame. And whereas research recognizes that adverse child experiences, which include but are not limited to physical, emotional, and sexual abuse, physical and emotional household dysfunction, untreated mental illness, or incarceration of a member, domestic violence, and separation or divorce involving household members, all are traumatic experiences that can have a profound effect on a child's developing brain and body, and can result in poor physical and mental health during childhood and adulthood. And whereas community understanding and available supports and services can greatly impact a person's ability to handle their stress and struggle and move forward, and whereas promoting mental health and wellness leads to higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, lower healthcare costs, improved family life, improved quality of life, and increased lifespan. And whereas studies show that the effects of adverse childhood experiences are felt by people regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, faith-based organization, nonprofit agency, and citizen shares accountability for the community's mental health needs, and has a responsibility to promote mental health wellness and support prevention efforts. And whereas the importance of attending to mental health has become even more pronounced in the last few years due to COVID-19, political and social unrest, and the resulting economic crisis, where isolation, sickness, grief, job loss, food instability, and loss of routines has increased the need for mental health services. And whereas the city of Lake Worth Beach recognizes the impact of awareness and education, access to services, and acceptance of the importance of mental health and well-being to a person's overall success, and supports the implementation of trauma-informed approaches throughout the system of care. Now therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth and birthday girl, by the virtue of the authority vested in her and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2023 Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month. In witness thereof, she has set her hand and caused the seal of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, to be affixed this 2nd day of May 2023. I see it.
Carmel, yeah, from Healthier Lake Worth will be up to accept this.
Yeah.
Bring the group up.
This many people show up. We get that. I am excited. And you're gonna stick around for the next one. Get everybody Yeah. And you can use that picture for both properties. Wait a minute.
Next up. And if we could do with that echo, it's really annoying. Okay, now this is a proclamation declaring May 2023 as Haitian Heritage Month. Yep, no. This is a proclamation from the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida. Whereas that echoes, if we could do something about that echo, that would be good. It's still on. Maybe that. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Woo. Whereas May has historical and cultural traditions that are honored by Haitians around the world. And whereas May is the month in which an historic pact signed by Black and mulatto officers occurred, which led to the creation of the Haitian flag on May 18th, 1803, and Haiti's independence on January 1st, 1804, when Haiti became the first Black independent country in the world. And whereas the Haitian Revolution was the forerunner of modern anti-colonial movements throughout the Third World, And whereas Haiti celebrates May 1st as Labor and Agricultural Day, a day when workers, peasants, and artisans celebrate together. And whereas Haitians honor their mothers on the last Sunday in May by wearing red flowers if their mothers are still alive, and white or purple flowers if their mothers have died. And whereas many religious celebrations in Haiti occur during the month of May, known by Haitian Catholics as the month of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And whereas the Haitian community contributes greatly to the rich history, culture, and diversity of the city of Lake Worth Beach. And whereas the Haitian community of Lake Worth Beach has established and distinguished itself through the efforts of many community organizations, businesses, and community participation. And whereas the city of Lake Worth Beach and the Haitian community share in the belief that the contributions and participation of all people from all cultures and backgrounds is what makes Lake Worth Beach a great city. Now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2023 as Haitian Heritage Month. And I have set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, to be affixed the second day of May 2023. Why don't you all just stand up for the first one? Thank you, everybody. Our next proclamation is declaring May 2023 as Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And Mr. Diaz is going to read that one for us.
All right. Whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI heritage in the United States was celebrated beginning in 1978 and was made into a month-long event in 1992. And whereas during AAPI Heritage Month, we acknowledge Asian American and Pacific Islanders have lived and worked in the United States of America for more than 200 years, contributing to the economy, culture, education, politics, arts, literature, science, and technological developments despite institutional and systemic injustices designed to prevent and limit these achievements and contributions. And whereas despite these contributions and leadership, the role of AAPI in U.S. history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. And whereas during AAPI Heritage Month, we acknowledge the additional determination, hard work, and perseverance Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders must put forth to be heard and seen, and that these additional efforts are a result of inequitable institutional and systemic injustices. Now, therefore, Betty Resch, Mayor of City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in her and on behalf of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim May 2022 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and encourage all residents to observe, recognize, celebrate the culture, heritage, and contributions of Asian American and Pacific Islanders to our country, state, and city. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida to be affixed the second day of May 2023.
Thank you.
And I can just point out, we are really well represented. We do have a number of restaurants on Dixie and downtown, and you can't go wrong with any of them. Between Indian, Pelican,
Right.
Oka, Hachi, Henry's Kula Bar, we're well represented.
We are well represented. Thank you very much. Okay, the next up is, and Miss, there she is, like magic, she appeared. This Some people, you don't understand what the clerks do. You know, there's until the paperwork is over, it didn't happen. It's exactly what the clerks do. They keep us our minutes, they set our agendas, they record everything that needs to be recorded. They remind us when we haven't done things that we're supposed to do. And we greatly appreciate. They're the people, like I have so many other people that work for the city are sort of silently, invisibly making things work, and we appreciate them. And today is, whereas the International Institute for Municipal Clerks initiated Municipal Clerks Week in 1969, which was endorsed by all of its members in the United States, Canada, and 15 countries at a time of celebration and reflection on the importance of the clerk's office. In 1984, President Reagan signed a proclamation officially declaring the first week of May as Municipal Clerks Week. And whereas the Florida Association of City Clerks was established in 1972 to promote and develop the educational and professional status of Florida city clerks and works in conjunction with the IMC to provide certified municipal clerk and master municipal clerk in certifications for city clerks. And whereas this organization strives to help to increase the efficiency of city clerk functions, increase cooperation and assistance with city administrators, gather and disseminate information to improve procedures, and improve the efficiency of the administration of municipal government. And whereas the FACC currently has more than 575 members in 7 districts throughout the state, and is proud to have one of the largest certification programs in the country with more than 200 certified municipal clerks and more than 100 master municipal clerks among its members. Now, therefore, I, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, by virtue of the authority vested in me and on behalf of the Commission, do hereby proclaim April 30th to May 6, 2023 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, which is an occasion worth of special recognition and to acknowledge that City Clerk Melissa Ann Coyne and Deputy and Deputy City Clerk Shayla Ellis, who can't be with us tonight because she's not feeling well, are both IIMC and the FACC. So they're both way up there, and it's really, are you you have an office in the clerks, is the count?
Palm Beach County Municipal Clerks Association.
Thank you. And I've signed it, and Melissa has set the seal of the City of Lake Worth on it. Thank you so much. Let me come down to. We all need you.
Yeah. Oh, you're coming down. I was going back to the dungeon.
That's where we keep. That's right. One more. One more. We couldn't do this without Commissioner Stokes having her turn.
Whereas twice a year, billions of birds migrate vast distances across the globe. Many species migrate along broadly similar, well-established routes known as flyways. And whereas the 2 peak days of World Migratory Bird Day 2023 are May 13th and October 14th, reflecting the cyclical nature of bird migration with varying migration periods in the northern and southern hemispheres. And whereas the City of Lake Worth Beach is on the migratory bird flyway during their seasonal migrations, and whereas the conservation theme this year is water, sustaining bird life, and focuses on the importance of water to migratory birds. And whereas water is a fundamental to life on our planet, the vast majority of migratory birds rely on aquatic ecosystems during their life cycles as inland and coastal wetlands, rivers, lakes, streams, marshes, and ponds all are vital for feeding, drinking, or nesting, and also as places to rest and refuel during their long journeys. And whereas the City of Lake Worth Beach wants to provide a welcoming habitat and safe passage for the migratory birds with its surrounding waterways and parks. Now, therefore, Betty Resch, Mayor of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, by virtue of an authority invested in her and on behalf of the Commission, do hereby proclaim May 13th, 2023 as World Migratory Bird Day and urged the citizens of Lake Worth Beach to protect aquatic ecosystems in order to protect both the quantity and quality of water for all species. In witness whereof, she has set her hand and caused the seal of the city of Lake Worth Beach, Florida to be affixed this second day of May 2023.
Thank you very much. Gail Silverblatt, I hope you're watching. Shout out to Gail and all. We have a very dedicated group of bird people in this city, and it's really wonderful because on Facebook all the time, I don't get those kind of birds in my backyard, but Gail gets these amazing birds in her backyard, and people go out to the wetlands, and it's just lovely to see, and I thank you. Commission liaison reports and comments. Let's start with District 4 today.
I'll keep mine short because we have plenty to talk about. I did just want to plug 2 events that we have. Let me pull up. On the 3rd, Pete Seeger's birthday. So in the affectionately called Biblial Party Room in the library from 6 to 8, our own Mel and Vinny are holding a potluck sing-along song circle. That's really fun. Pete Seeger is really great. And overall, it's just great to see that room being used because also on May 18th, the Treasure Coast chapter of the Florida Association of Environmental Professionals having their meeting there, and they're having a presentation on super nerdy stuff that only people like me probably enjoy, like the technological advancements of water well asset management and sustainability. So if you're into that, if you're an environmental engineer, if
Fascinating.
you are a scientist, environmental engineer, that might be a good one to join. So I love that our room is getting booked up. So if you have an event or any kind of meeting or anything like that, it's super reasonable. It's a beautiful room. It has a nice little piano on it, and definitely keep using it.
And it was a friend of Ronaldo's that donated this amazing baby grand piano, fully tuned with a black velvet cover that goes over it. It's so wonderful. Commissioner Stokes.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I'm really excited to get on to the being able to lower the electric rates tonight significantly. We've been waiting a long time for this. I'm excited to get to that. The only thing I want to announce is with respect to May 13th being World Migratory Bird Day, Spillway Park is a place where the birds do come, and I believe the Audubon Society is going to have a field trip there, 9 a.m., May 13th.
Oh.
And then I'm working with Leisure Services to coordinate and advertise a listening session because there's a lot of different ideas that the community wants to see happen at Spillway. So May 13th, come in the morning, check out some birds, and stay to give your input on the kinds of things we'd like to see at that park.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, but the listening session starts at 10.
Oh,
But I think the birders are going to be out at 9.
they're very early.
Yeah.
They're very early.
But we'll push it out on social media.
I watch the afternoon birds,
The siesta birds.
the siesta birds on their way down. Okay, District 2.
Thank you. Just 3 different things that I'll bring up. Some of you know that my wife is very active as a volunteer with an organization called Foro Penal, which is, I always call it the Venezuelan equivalent to Amnesty International. They won the Civil Rights Defender of the Year award. It's an international organization with groups all around the world trying to protect the civil rights and human rights. They won that from the Civil Rights Defenders out of Stockholm, Sweden. Second item is, some of you probably noticed that today the governor signed an act prohibiting the state government and other governments from doing ESG investing. What's ESG investing? Environmental, social, and governance investing refers to a set of standards that companies can choose to follow. What does Forbes say about ESG? At its core, ESG investing is about influencing positive changes in society by being a better investor. What does it do? Reduces risks, lowers costs, better returns, and market outperformance. McKinsey, some of you have heard of them. 5 ways that ESG creates value. I'm not going to list all of them, but facilitating top-line growth, reducing costs. Another one, TechTarget, offers a competitive advantage, attracts investors and lenders. So we have a governor who has responsibility for all state pensions in the Florida retirement system.
Stop.
And
Do not
has
interrupt.
chosen
Do not. Folks, you really need to not talk. It's rude to interrupt.
and has chosen to eliminate a path that is recognized, forget whether you like it for investment reasons, for social policy, it is a proven investment tool recognized in the industry. And he said, we're not going to do that anymore. My third one is I went to the Tropical Ridge Neighborhood Association yesterday, and we had a very interesting presentation from one of the professors in the business school, Ken Johnson, who's been working hard at tools that are available to all of us. Anybody wants to look at them, you Google FAU Business School housing will probably get you there. He looks at cities all around the country. Unfortunately, it's not at the city level. It's by the census tract. So we're under the Miami tract, which takes in the 3-county area. But still, you can learn a lot out of it. Very interesting things. One little tidbit that he had that came as a bit of a bump for me was the conventional wisdom that we all know is if you want to build intergenerational wealth, buy a house and encourage house purchase. He says, the research shows that if you are a renter, and here comes a big if you are a renter and you reinvest what you have available, you'll do better than the house buyers. That's from the business school professor at University of Florida. He did not strike me as a way out there guy. He seemed pretty solid. But the trick is you got to reinvest. If you don't reinvest and you just rent, yeah, you're going to lose out. And buying a house is better. But I'd like to shout out the Tropical Ridge Neighborhood Association. They've had a history for a while of bringing in interesting speakers that relate to our community or to that particular neighborhood association. So I found that very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few things. Last Saturday, the International Art Deco Society started their week-long tour of South Florida. Sharon Kossoff from, I think, Delray Beach or Boca had organized it. And I went on Saturday morning to welcome them. And it was a nice crowd. And they came from Australia and England and all different places to come. And they showed off they had a tour of Lake Worth Beach about the different architectural deco things that we have. It was great. From there, I went to the Lake Worth High School Alumni Foundation lunch. And this is a group, it's really interesting. This is just another example of what a small town we are. There is a Lake Worth Alumni Association and a foundation, and they constantly work to raise funds to give scholarships to our kids that are graduating. And they encourage the younger people to become active in the Alumni Association because we really are. Lake Worth High School is one of the only city high schools. It's 100 years old. And we were one of the only high schools that were not touched with this redistricting. We're one of the only, because they recognized that we're a solid community and people spoke up and we went and spoke. I met with we all talked about it and they listened and they responded. So we were untouched by that, which was a wonderful thing. And the band played they had the honor guard came to the luncheon and also the Lake Worth High School Windward Quartet, I believe it was. On last week sometime, I forget what day it was, I'm on the board of the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and we had a board meeting, and a lot of that is just the board stuff going on, but they did a little update, and we've heard it from William Waters, and at some point, Mr. Tresivi is going to educate us about the new Live Local bill, which allows development. There's kind of a thing going on in Tallahassee about home rule and municipalities. They're sort of chipping away at it. And this was on zoning that you can now have a residential mixed use event in an industrial area or anywhere except like the golf course. So it's just, again, once taking away our power of zoning, and it's going to be sort of interesting. They also, I believe, have made local elections partisan. I think we're not sure how that's going to shape out, but I think at least at the minimum, we're going to have to declare our party affiliation. And they've also, I believe it went through yesterday or today. Every year we fill out a financial, where we get our money and now it's going to be quite different. It's going to be like applying for a mortgage. The same thing that the state people have to do. And the Florida League of Cities fought it, bless you, but it did not go through. This week, we have a demonstration of different firefighters and fire rescue things going on. And at the beach, the front of the casino is blocked off. And we're hosting this, and there's all sorts of, it's a competition of skills of extrication and drowning and all those things that those lifesavers do. So you're welcome to go up and observe it. It's going on today, tomorrow. It should be wonderful to watch. And let me see, one more thing. Oh yeah. This is a little more fun. I don't know if any of you saw, but last Halloween, we had a very fun group, and it was informally called the Witches of Lake Worth Beach. Now, that was just a temporary name, but what it was a group of ladies, and there turned out to be about 35 or 40 of us that performed at the Lake Worth Halloween show. And it was a German dance, and it was a lot of fun. It's on YouTube if you want to find it. That experience, and some of them were in the audience, was so much fun. It was only about having a good time. It was only about getting together and making costumes and practicing and rehearsing. No politics were ever discussed. No world affairs were ever discussed. It was just, let's get together and have a good time. In keeping with that spirit, this coming Friday, at the library, at the same room that you go into Lucerne, we're having a potluck. And this is, don't worry about the witches thing. We know that we have to change that name, but we're going to get together, and we hope as many women, even if you've not been involved before, it's a fun group, and the city is interested in having the group perform, perhaps at the Christmas parade or something else. So we would love, and even if you don't want to perform, we would love to have you join us. It's a potluck. I'll be providing the refreshments, the drinks, and but it's a potluck, and just come and have a good time. It really is just so much fun. Raise your hand if you were in our group this past time. I see a few of us. Yep. It was great. So please join us and have a little fun, and just have fun, because if it's not fun, it's not worth it. I believe that's all I have. Thank you. Now we're going to have let's have the city manager's report, and then we'll have the city attorney's report. Okay, why not?
That's not what you voted on, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry? So we have,
That's not what you voted on. You voted to have the city attorney's report before the city manager's report.
and we'll do that way.
Right.
I don't care.
Good evening. So as you're aware, for the last several months, Carmen and I have been negotiating the extension of Benny's lease. Basically, my background, the lease was entered into in February of 2013 with an option, basically an 8-year option and a 2-year option. I'm just going to refer to it as a 10-year option to extend. Benny's requested the extension. The only item that's up for negotiations in form of the lease is the amount of rent. The rent has to be based on similar restaurants in similar locations in Florida. So we presented to a proposed amendment a couple of weeks ago. The commission said go back and continue to work. So over the last 2 weeks, we've continued to look at other restaurants and do other comparisons as to what's a fair rate, and continue to negotiate with Benny's. I've spoken to Benny's lawyer several times in the last week, 3 times today. I believe we're making progress. I think there's a special meeting scheduled on May the 10th at 5 p.m. tentatively scheduled May 10th. And my hope and expectation is that by that day, be able to bring you one of a couple of options. One option would be we have another proposed agreement. Another option would be a short-term extension on probably the existing terms, while we either continue to negotiate or we conduct a study to determine what are similar restaurants and similar locations in Florida rent. There's been a lot of discussion about that, a lot of numbers going back and forth. So we're not able to reach an agreement that's acceptable to both sides. That would be the next step. So that's pretty much the update.
So on the 10th of May, we're talking tentative, but it seems like when will we know if we're going to have a meeting or not, and what will that be based on? If we have an agreement, or, I mean, should we just plan on having it?
I would suggest you plan on having it, because you have to
Right.
provide the public notice. You might as well plan on having it, because I think on that day, I need to report something to you.
Okay.
I either need to say, here's a proposed agreement, and you can vote it up or down,
Okay.
or we're not quite there in the proposed agreement. We'd like a 2 or 3 month extension to either A, continue to negotiate, or seek your direction as to whether we go down the study path of similar rents at similar restaurants in Florida.
Okay, so that'll be a special meeting, not a workshop.
Correct.
Okay.
Expect to make a decision one way or the other, whatever the direction is going to be. Go straight, go left, go right, whatever the direction is that night.
And that's at 5 o'clock on the 10th, which is a Wednesday, I believe.
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
Wednesday, May 10th at 5 o'clock, not 6 o'clock, because I think HRPP comes in or at 6 o'clock. So it's 1 hour and thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, now, Ms. Manager. Thank you. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few updates and just information. On Monday morning, I attended the Office of Equal Business Opportunity for the Palm Beach County Division. They host a week-long events in observation of Small Business Week. And so they were hosting their breakfast kickoff meeting at the Palm Beach County Cultural Council here in town. So on behalf of the commission, I attended that meeting to bring greetings on behalf of the mayor and the city commission and welcome them to City Lake Worth Beach. They're going to have 4 events that week. I don't have the schedule, but of the 4 events, there are 2 that will be held here in Lake Worth Beach. So the breakfast kickoff was a Monday morning, and then they're going to have a business mixer at the Bamboo Room.
Oh, when?
Yes, I believe sometime this week. I don't know, but if you go on the website, you'll be able to see it.
The Cultural Council website?
No, the
Oh.
Equal Opportunity Business
Oh, okay.
website. So just want to give you that update that I brought greetings on behalf of the commission. The second one, I just want to bring congratulations to Mr. Patrick Livingston of Arms of Hope Community, Inc. He received a $100,000
Wow.
grant. Yes. Yeah, I'm excited for him from the Palm Beach County Impact 100.
Wow.
So they were recipients of the 2023 grant awards.
Wow.
So that's exciting for them.
That's
So I
great.
wanted to let the community know that wonderful things are happening in Lake Worth Beach. And then lastly, I want to introduce someone to the commission and the public. As you know, I've mentioned to you all individually that the National Forum of Public Black Administrators have received a grant from the AmeriCorps VISTA program. And some of you may know, but the AmeriCorps VISTA program is a federal agency for national service and volunteerism. And it provides opportunities for Americans of all backgrounds to serve their country, address nation's most pressing challenges, and improve lives and communities. And so the city of Lake Worth Beach is fortunate to be a recipient of one of the VISTA members. And they're, along with 2 other communities, the city of Belle Glade also received a member, and also Lauderdale Lakes. And so we're one of the 3. And so the project goal is to address issues related to poverty and improve quality of life in cities and counties in which the member is assigned. So we are honored to have a recipient, and I want to introduce Lena Trinidad. And so she's originally from Berlin, New Jersey, and she's been in the area for a few years. Just to give a little brief background, she has a bachelor's in education with a minor in English as a second language. And she's also has a master's in business administration. And she's taught middle school math and literacy for 15 years. And she also served as a school board member for the Camden School District. So she has a range of background. She's also a business owner, and she's also served in the National Forum of Black Public Administration as on the committees, event committees, and the sponsorship committee, correct? Yeah. So So with that, I'm excited to introduce her. She'll be working with the city administration on increasing community engagement, enhancing community partnership relations, and increasing our critical resources and services for our residents. So thank you, Lena, for joining us, and we're so excited to work with you.
Looking
Thank-
forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Okey-doke. Now we have public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda. So, start, Mr. Colmeyer. Followed by Mrs. Colmeyer. Sure. Oh.
My name is Cliff Colmeyer, 503 First Avenue South, Lake Worth. And I would like to thank the commission and the mayor for the work they've done to prepare in advance of the meetings when you're presented with the agendas, and you've got a whole lot of stuff to work through. And I appreciate the diligence, the due diligence that you put into that. And I want to thank Carmen Davis, city manager, and Mr. Torsavia, if that's how he pronounces his name, Torsavia, the city attorney, for the negotiations that they are undertaking. I think that the issue of Benny's has been kind of reduced down for maybe for the benefit of some of the politicians that want to make it a pro or a con, for or against Benny's. I think we're all for Benny's, but the people on the dais here have a certain responsibility to also take account of the actual facts. And there are some good facts for keeping their rate, the renewal rate in line with the fair market value. There are other arguments against, there's maybe good argument for subsidizing them. And some of you here today maybe want to subsidize that business at the expense of other businesses and the expense of taxpayer money. If that is the case, then that argument, that backup should be in a fiscal analysis. For example, the economic benefit to the city of giving a subsidy to a business should be in the fiscal analysis. But the fiscal analysis also should include the liabilities to the city, such as the repairs to the pier that we undertake if there's a storm, boards and railings having to be replaced. We really need to see what that amounts to in order to get a fair market analysis. And that's all we're asking for, is a fair market analysis. So thank you for your due diligence, city manager and city attorney. I know you guys are working really hard, and it's not easy because there's a lot of public opinion, some of which I venture to say is not well informed. They think that we're trying to get rid of Benny's, which we're not. But we really want a fair deal for the taxpayers, for the city, and to be able to look back in the future and see that we have got the best deal for both parties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Colmeyer? And then up next is Ginny Powell. While you're in the row, we'll just do make it easier. Ginny's next. Thank you.
Catherine Colmeyer, 503 First Avenue South, Lake Worth. So again, concerning the Benny's lease, at the April 18th commission meeting, unfortunately, the commission was forced into a vote against the city attorney's advice. This has led to some misunderstandings.
I just have to say one thing. There was a motion and a second that was not withdrawn. That's why there was a vote. There was a motion.
Could it have been withdrawn if you're engaging
It
in a
was not
conversation
withdrawn.
with me?
It was not withdrawn. That's all. Go ahead.
Against the city manager, the
Hang on
city
straight
attorney's
there.
advice. This has led to some misunderstandings. Nobody got evicted. And despite some heated comments, further negotiations are underway. I'm very grateful that we have commissioners who will do their due diligence for the city and ask detailed questions. So a transparent and fair deal for everybody the city, Benny's, taxpayers can be come to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ginny Powell? And after Ginny, Wes Blackman's up.
Jenny Powell, 224 North Palm Way. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. The Benny's lease has become very emotional and divisive, unfortunately. I hope we all want the same thing. That's for Benny's to stay open and to pay a fair market value for its space on the pier. Benny's had a fabulous deal in 2013. I don't think anybody will deny that. The rent didn't go up for 10 years, as we all know. It was likely the right decision at the time. We were still recovering from the Great Recession. That was in 2008, and it took till 2014 for unemployment to stabilize and reach pre-recession levels, and another year for median household incomes to recover. It appears that Benny's has been a good tenant for the city over the last 10 years, and actually before that. Lots of people love the food, the atmosphere, and the location, which is prime real estate. But we now need a new lease based on facts, not emotion. My understanding, as the city attorney mentioned, that the city attorney and the city manager, and I thank you, are working on a revised lease agreement that he believes, according to Channel 12 News, or maybe it was 25, will be acceptable to both sides. So I'm optimistic, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Wes Blackman, and after Wes Blackman, John and/or Erica Breedlove, one of the Breedloves.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Lake Worth Beach, a certified urban planner, and supervised construction projects at an 18-acre ocean to intracoastal property for 10 years. This experience included building a pool and cabanas behind a seawall. When our city was first being settled, the pioneer families recognized the importance of the beach to the city's identity, its residents' quality of life, and the future economic well-being of the community. In the 1920s, the community raised the funds to build a picturesque casino building at the end of a new bridge. This created a signature destination. Newly invented and mass-produced automobiles came from the mainland across this bridge, bringing tourists and visitors. They spent their money throughout the community, which helped sustain and nurtured the development of what we know as Lake Worth Beach. The city later reaffirmed that commitment in the 21st century by rebuilding its casino in the image of the original 1920s building. As you negotiate the lease for Benny's on the Beach, it is important to remember that the city had an opportunity to secure a restaurant anchor tenant for the north end of the present building. The restaurant space originally was designed to be 2 stories. Johnny Longboats, a Palm Beach County business, was in competition for this space. A commissioner at the time is one that occupies a seat on the dais today. This commissioner and his supporters thought the second floor space and the views of the Atlantic Ocean it offered were too spectacular for just any tenant. The decision was then made to make the second floor space separate from the first floor for an exclusive and upscale tenant on the order of Café L'Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, that second floor space is still vacant today. 11 years later, it remains unfinished and is the reason the casino building does not have its permanent certificate of occupancy. It has yet to generate revenue for the city or add to the attractiveness of the city's flagship property. We have a bird in the hand, speaking of Migratory Bird Week. Please do not kill the goose which lays the golden eggs. 2 metaphors is sufficient. Negotiate in good faith with Benny's on the Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. one of the Breedloves, and then Adrian Copeland. Whoever's the more outspoken of the Breedloves.
Are we allowing applause?
Yes, you are.
Very, very quick. We're not allowing shout outs. We're not allowing negative stuff, but a little bit of a play. I don't want to be a complete Martinet. Just keep it brief, folks. Okay, the Breedloves, you ready? Okay. And with the applause, just keep it, let's just keep going.
The rules are on the back of the blue cards that you're submitting.
Good evening. I'm Adrian Copeland, 127 North Palm Way, Unit 1. And I hope that you are capable of comprehending the amount of sheer disdain and outrage there is in our community over your last appalling decision to try and eradicate bennies on the beach. Number one, are you not forcing many people, about 200, to lose their livelihoods by not saving bennies? Number two, are you not costing the city innumerable dollars of lost revenues from taxes, tourism, and parking with no clear-cut, precise plans for recovery of those losses? Number three, are you eradicating a landmark destination? Your decision is also exceedingly hypocritical, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. How on God's green earth can you claim to be supposed advocates for rent control, for affordable housing, and then turn around and demand this huge over 25% increase in this tenant's rent? How do you claim to be supposed advocates for those in need by creating even more need? Because guess what? Over 200 people, 200 employees work at Benny's, and you will be destroying their livelihoods. They won't be able to feed their children. I defy you to offer any semblance of logical, rational, or an intelligent response to these questions, because there are none, are there? And one other thing I need to say. I have asked if there was anything in writing, as far as your job descriptions go, for you all to make any comments of any state government, anything. This is not in your job description. This is not your jurisdiction. You focus on this city and this city's problems only, that we have so many of. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, please. It takes too much time. Okay. I think the Breedloves wrote a comment and then left. That's the impression I'm getting. And it says, Benny's has been loved in my family since 1997. And since I moved here in 1999, and I have been going ever since. So that was their comment. One of the Breedloves was going to say that. Todd? Oh, and don't forget, when you come up here, your name and your address. I think I've been lax.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. I want to talk about something different than Benny's. I want to talk about this online petition at change.org/Lake Worth Beach for the Scab School Children Access Bridge. Need everybody to look that up and sign that petition. Trying to put a nice little team together so that we can get this in front of the FDOT and really make this happen for the kids. 11 to 14 years old, practical application is just too high, especially with what they're going to be doing with the double diamond convergence thing there. So the second thing is I wanted to address the commission concerning the space at First Ave in between K and L, that big open space there. I think that's a place to be kept green. That should be our pocket park. When a small city like this has a pocket park, and I've lived in a couple of small cities around the country, when you have that little small park like that, a little pocket park, it shows abundance, right? And some cities that I've been to have eliminated those, and now you've just got this cool strip down the middle and then just buildings. So the CRA has to be talked to because we don't want to wake up one day and find that they have cut down all those trees and now it's not worth saving. And then in that same space, if we move the house from 17 M Street, South M Street, to share that space with our pocket park, we'll be unveiling some 50 new parking spaces for the downtown area, which we greatly need. So it's kind of like two things and you get a three out of it. So thank you very much for listening to your time, for listening to for my time, and I just really appreciate your efforts. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Vicky Conley, I think, and then Angie Young. Vicky's popular. And after that, Barbara Perlman. So Vicky is it Connie?
Conley.
Conley. Okay, sorry.
Happy birthday, Mayor
Thank
and
you.
our commissioners. This is my first time ever doing anything like this, so forgive my awkwardness and my emotions.
Just name and address.
Vicky Conley, 15 South Gulfview, apartment 403, Lake Worth Beach, Florida. I worked at Benny's for 17 years, so I was there when John and Peter had it. And I've been there, like I said, I can see how much Lee has put into it and how much he cares about us. I can see how much we've grown over 17 years. Like I remember being there during the summer, there'd only be one of us upstairs and two downstairs. And now we have 7 of us on. It's crazy. I'm just so thankful for that. But I can see, like Mr. Amoroso said, like people have to they come to see Benny's. They come to enjoy our food. They come to enjoy the atmosphere and the views. Yes. But we wouldn't have that if they hadn't put so much into it. Lee does a lot for the pier. He does a lot for the city. And I just think all that needs to be taken into consideration. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Please hold it down. Hold it down. Angie Young is up next. And then Barbara Perlman. You can give me the cards. Thank you. Do you want to read it or do you want to read it? C. Brown? Okay.
Hi, Angie Young. I'm at 110 North Lakeside Drive, apartment 3. First time doing this, so forgive me for stuttering.
Take a deep breath.
Oh, that won't help. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, I moved to Lake Worth in 2016. I instantly fell in love with this town. The vibe, the cute historic downtown restaurants, music. I call it the Civic Center. Correct me if that's not what you call it, but where we have the bandstand here in
Cultural
town.
Plaza.
Thank you. Food truck invasions, events at Bryant Park, the pool, the parades, and the people. I felt welcome. After the world shut down in 2020, this town sadly never recovered fully. Businesses closed. Downtown has no replacements. Town sponsors events have completely stopped. And that's now the new status quo. When was the last time we had a food truck invasion? When is our pool going to open? When are we going to do something about the pool? We've been truly knocked down, no longer the vibrant area that I remember when I moved here. It's only been 7 years. The Gulf Stream is still sitting empty. Multiple empty storefronts downtown on Lake Avenue and Lucerne. And now the Target of Benny's. It's a landmark. I take my family there. I'm not from Florida, so out-of-town guests gets taken there. I don't think a Flanagan's or a Duffy's is going to bring that kind of people, that kind of tourism, and that kind of dollar. Thanks to a few naysaying commissioners for that, we should be supporting our local businesses. Benny's has brought us a lot of revenue and notoriety to this town, obviously. A city that once attracted tourists, out-of-town guests, and family is slowly being cast away to other cities. We're losing people to Delray. We're going to lose people to Lake Park. We're going to lose people down to Riviera Beach. Please. There's a saying in the retail world, you have to spend money to make money. And for us to invest and spend that money in the Gulf Stream, in the pool, in Benny's, is going to bring us revenue. You have to spend that money. We have to be fiscally responsible. I understand that. But we've got to draw the line somewhere to bring those people back. My personal opinion, some of y'all need to get your act together. Make this happen and bring us back to the community that I fell in love with 7 years ago. I challenge all of the commissioners and the mayor that when you started to rally around and reflect on your campaign, remember what you said in your campaign. Where is the pool? It's still closed. Where are the food trucks? Where's the music? Where are the things that we used to do? I remember a concert that was held with a Rasta band, and forgive me, I cannot remember the name. I was here a very short amount of time, and it was after the Pride shooting, or after the shooting in Orlando. And I thought I was going to listen to music. And when I got there, There were rabbis, there were priests, and we all came together as a community. I haven't seen that since. And I really think we have the ability to do it. And as a commission, I challenge you to do it. Your campaign promises, I hope, are not just airfield words. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Barbara Pearlman and Peggy Fisher. Is Barbara Pearlman there? She
This
is.
is me.
Okay. She wants to speak.
Happy birthday, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes, and hello to everybody. I live in Palm Beach. My name is Barbara Pearlman, 2505 South Ocean, apartment 401. I have friends and family coming in from Europe, from Turkey, from everywhere. And where do you think we all go? Benny's on the beach. We don't want to go to places in Lake Worth because at night it's kind of dangerous with all the dive bars and everything like that. Sorry about that, but that's the truth. But it's a family place, it's Benny's. And that's where I like to take the people. And you know what they do? After they go to Benny's in the day, they like breakfast, lunch, maybe dinner. Then they go into the town and they spend money in the town. They go to the stores. So Benny's is creating a lot of revenue for the town of Lake Worth, which needs it, plus the parking and everything like that. Plus it's family friendly. And I don't mean to put any other businesses down, but this is a landmark. People from all over the world come here and it needs to stay open. Maybe you could negotiate the lease a little bit, but not where it's outrageous. And I think that would be a good get together. I could help with anything like that because I'm good at that. So anyway, I want to thank you all for your time and consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Peggy Fisher and then David Sims. And after David, Suki DeYoung.
Peggy Fisher, 508 North A Street. I love that I have to give my public information out loud. To one of our commissioners, page 9 of your rules for the commission, which is not 9 pages on the back of the blue card, states clapping is permissible at the end of a speaker's comments. End of that statement. Disinformation, a lot of disinformation about the apprentice program. Fact, September 20th, 2022, this commission approved hiring one apprentice into the apprentice programs because that is the amount of money that was available to fund apprentices. Not that anyone's not filling the other 4 slots that are in the program. They don't have the money. So let's talk facts. We're very big on facts. So let's talk facts, okay? Rather than for the city's good. Well, if you were so concerned about the city's good, why isn't the casino building filled and why hasn't it been filled? So that's enough of all that. My other comments are directed towards the city manager and the city attorney and their staffs. Thank you to all the people that work for this city, for their dedication, their hard work. They're trying to do the best for the residents of this city. I am dismayed at the amount of times our staff, our employees are marginalized, their opinions nullified. We hired them because they're the experts to do the work. And we have gotten out of control with this commission, thinking you get to go in and interrogate every staff member about your personal need for numbers or anything else. They have a job to do. Their job is to serve the residents of this city. It is not to provide work that you want put on them without going through the proper channels. You are disrupting, disheartening, and affecting the morale of our staff. And I, as one resident, and maybe there are a few more out here, would like to say thank you for those staff members. You should not fear for your job. There are a ton of residents in this city who appreciate every bit of work you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Up next, David Sims, followed by Suki DeYoung, followed by Tom Conboy.
David Sims, 715 North L Street. This evening, I see in the audience many signs saying we should save Benny's. Benny's is not threatened with termination or annihilation. It never has been. Mr. Lipton is in total control of the future of his beachfront restaurant. As I've previously mentioned, I and many other residents and some of the commissioners are just asking that Mr. Lipton pay the city a reasonable rate for the property he leases, consistent with the rates of other nearby beach businesses, rates that reflect current market conditions. Considering that Benny's also receives revenues from the pier, this is a very good deal. There's nothing unreasonable about that. And I would love to see a deal made for a reasonable rate and for Benny's to continue to be open. Commissioner Stokes, McVoy, and Diaz were correct to turn down the previous offer because it was flawed. They were not sabotaging nor obstructing. So I thank them. They made the right decision so we could have a fair deal for the city and the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Suki DeYoung, followed by Tom Conboy, followed by Todd Velez.
Hi, Suki DeYoung, 2381 Sunset Avenue, apartment 10, Lake Worth Beach. So yeah, it is beyond me why folks in our fair city choose to support a millionaire who wants to hold on to his sweetheart deal for leasing a prime location on Lake Worth Beach. He gets free advertising, charges tourist seafood prices, and enjoys all the traffic that would be there for any restaurant overlooking our beautiful beach. All for a price less than that of Mamma Mia's Pizzeria on the boardwalk.
Please, folks, don't.
Okay, so, yeah. I commend and support the three commissioners who have supported the city getting a better deal, a fair deal for the city of Lake Worth Beach. Thank you for standing up for the folks in this city who would prefer a new pool at the beach rather than renewing a sweetheart deal lease for a man making millions off of our jewel of a beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Tom Conboy, followed by Todd Velez, followed by Joseph Torres. And folks, really, while somebody's talking, please don't interrupt. Please don't talk. It's rude. Thank you.
Tom Conboy, 30 South M Street, business owner. Madam Mayor, commissioners. First, I'd really like to thank the commissioners that stood up and said, listen, we need more information. We need to know what a fair market value is. You guys represent us and you represent our financial interests. What I've understood is that fair market value is between 50 or 60 or 70 and $100 per square foot in a pier oceanfront property like this. It's not the same as a pizza place. It's a premium property and we own that premium property. And so with that, we should have comps of comparable locations like this for you to make the decision. I understand that the report from that you guys got recommended a minimum amount or 6% of gross sales, and that has been thrown away by the owner. And if that's the case, then you need to get better comps to understand what fair market is. No one is trashing Benny's or the owner of Benny's. And I just really think that you guys need to make a good decision and you need to do it well. If people are are really excited about something that would really be valuable to our city, do take a look at Todd's petition for this bridge over I-95 that would likely save some kids' lives, because when we get the diamond interchange, it will be more dangerous. And if you guys want to get behind something that would really be valuable for our city, please do that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Todd Velez, followed by Joseph Torres. And we did actually, when DOT came here, talked about that bridge, and I appreciate Todd working hard to get that forward.
Todd Velez, 530 North G. March 6th was Monday, and the Lake Worth new principal announced, "Good morning, Lake Worth Hospital," a Freudian slip. And I thought, well, I look over to the Royal Poinciana Park, or RoPo, or as they call it, the RoPo Hose, because that compound had a lot of outpatients that skip for hours on end every school day. Now, in the last week, we've had some incidents prior to that as well. But a gun pulled on a woman employee, and she decided to call the police. That was about 9-ish. We did have the school police come over, and a lot of the kids were disbanded. By 1:50 p.m., a fire was set in a plastic trash can and rekindled as the kids kept putting books.
Was that Lake Worth? Where was that, Tom? What school?
Royal Poinciana Park, and it's just a Freudian slip with the Lake Worth Hospital, High School. But that's on the announcement. Anywho, I'm eating up my minutes here. A fire was rekindled, and you got some evidence there, and a gun was pulled, which turned out to be a laser pointer air gun. But that can get you mowed down, as a slice of pizza pulled in on an officer can get you killed. So I could go longer on that. The camera angle that's angled on the camera on the corner of the park would show who and what was going on. Did nothing to obstruct that unless they don't work. I do ask if you all go and see how those cameras work with Captain Bear here. Slurpy, blue-haired girl, wig or something. There was an event where she and a male, teenagers, but not an item, did whatever they had to do in a tube between two children's slides. And they were brought down to the curb and I guess taken home. 5:15 is the cruise fashion on Lake Avenue. That would show some of the people that set fire. That was a retaliation. May 2011 is an anniversary of the first city meeting, and a lot of negotiations, gulags, D-list, punishment were the things brought up if you pull up those archives over the negotiation with the police department. 2010 and 2011 Calvary Methodist Church, we had a CI, or confidential informants, or as we called it, Calvary Institute or Calvary Informants. And we saw how it was all done with numerous people, from always 30 to 60 people. I was asked not to walk by my own church because I see too much, and I'm pretty good at that. And First Presby rummage sale on past Saturday. We went over. Oman Mitchell was an informant and pistol whipped somebody in the 201, which is on the corner, and we're at 231. Stolen.
Thank you, that's time.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll give you more.
Thank you. Joseph, no, I'm good. Joseph Torres, followed by Heather Borgarding, followed by Angie Gutierrez.
Hi, I'm Joseph Torres at 512 North 8th Street, and please save Benny's on the beach. I'm in trouble. I am headed to court because I'm not following codes guidelines. I actually am pleading for the entire council to come to my home and take a look because there's a problem that has not been addressed. I live in an I-shaped home. There's two homes next to each other, and we have 5 feet that the city permits between our properties. This is all I'm permitted. In the piece of paper that you see here, 1 foot that I can build on. And between the two of our houses and my neighbor's house, I put 19.5-inch stepping stones, 2 of them to the side of the house. It's flooding there on both. My side is worse than the other side because my neighbor's hill area is coming towards my side of my house. I've been in my house for 10 years, been dealing with the flooding. One home is a investment property, and my house and the next house, I'm speaking of the I-shaped home, we're family homes. You know, our homes, we own our homes. And I'm scheduled to go to court June 29th if I don't have these stepping stones up. That's not mainly why they have wrote me up, because I had 2 pallets of rocks, which I was putting on the sides. You have 1 foot, you're supposed to have space. It's either dirt, vegetation, or mulch. It's permissible. I was putting rocks there, and thankfully I had not put them out because I would have had to remove them all. I had 2 pallets of rocks sitting there on my property. I sold one of them. I'm trying to get rid of the other one. But the stepping stones, we really don't want to get rid of those. And I'm begging if you guys can come out and take a look at this and make some sort of decision on this, because we're only permitted a certain amount of build, so they say, but 1 foot to build on for a family to walk through flooding conditions to come into your home is unacceptable. Thank you.
I think you need to know that we have no jurisdiction over code.
They said that you guys made the rules.
Maybe 20, I mean, when the ordinances were set, but we don't.
They said you guys made the rules and there could be no provisions or anything based on the fact that this is set in place.
Well,
Now, it's not considering flooding, you know, the fact that we have to live, you know, walk here.
Just so that, you know, we can't call them up and go, don't, you know, we'd have to change the whole rules. We'll get back to it with the city attorney's office. We'll look at
Thank
your
you.
address at North H
And
Street.
please come by and take a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Beauregarding. Heather? How do you say your last name?
Hi, I'm Heather Beauregarding, 813 South M Street. It's my first time doing this. I'm very bad at public speaking,
Okay.
so. I moved to Lake Worth in 2005. I was 18. And I moved away from my family and everything, and I started a new life. And it was hard at first, and I was not in the best of way in the very beginning, but in 2013, I think, yes, 2013, I joined the Benny's team, and I found a family. And all I can say is that this restaurant brings so many people. It brings people all over the world. We have had, even since this last meeting, we've had people fly in from out of state just to come and see us, just to come and support us. And we have over 200 staff members that have families and lives, and we put our hearts into that beach. And the only thing that we do is to make it better. And I just want everything that our owner has put into not only the building, but the pier and the city and all of our contributions. We only try to make it better. And we bring revenue, you know, the parking lots, like what he was saying, like if we weren't there, who would be there? Sometimes our staff members have to Uber to work because there is no parking. And if we park somewhere else, we're going to get a ticket. So we Uber to work so other people can come to this beach and spend money and come to your city. And all we want is that you give us the chance to stay and do that. And all we want to do is go bigger and better. The pool, the upstairs, everything, anything. Like we just want to be a part of the city that we've been for so long. We have so many followers and so many locals, and it's heartbreaking to think that one day it might not be there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Angie Gutierrez, followed by Susan Shea, followed by Joni Johnson.
Hello, I'm Angie Gutierrez, 203 Northeast Street. I have built my life here in Lake Worth along with my daughter. I bought my house here. I've been working at Benny's on the Beach for 14 years. My Heather, who did not have an opportunity to mention to you that she lives on this beach. She's here for 7 days a week working. She gives her life to this beach as well as many of us do. When there's a hurricane, when there's a shutdown, we're the ones that are there taking care of all the building, of taking care of all of everything that's happening there. We are the ones that are taking care of the intangibles and the little things that you cannot put a numerical amount on at all. Apart from myself also spending 7 days a week there because I work 6 days, and my 7th day, I make sure that I'm there for the sunrise. Apart from that emotional connection, we are the ones that make sure that we take care of this beach. And I have been grateful enough to spend and to meet most of you on this panel, and I appreciate you. But I have been here for 14 years, and you haven't worked together for much more than just this little time that you've been together. So I really hope and appreciate all the time that you're spending to make sure that we're making the right decision all together. My daughter has been here and a part of this community from the beginning. She went to South grade, Lake Worth Middle, now Lake Worth High. She's a junior. So we're still here actively in this community and building it with us, along with 200 of our employees that come and we have helped build this community all together with. This is not just a business. This is not just like, it's something big. And we really appreciate that you're giving time and consideration to all this and appreciating what we're trying to put across. And we appreciate your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Susan Shea is up next, followed by Joni Johnson.
I'm Joni.
Oh, where's Susan Shea? Let's see. Maybe she wants me to read. Okay, you go ahead, Joni, and then I'll read the other one.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Joni Johnson. I live at 1519 14th Avenue North in Lake Worth Beach. I haven't lived in this town that long, but the time that I've been here, I realized the value of Benny's. And I watched and listened to the last commissioners meeting, and it seemed like, the absent commissioner and the mayor, who voted to save Benny's, had the right idea. But then you had the Benny's owner come in here, and he was fed up, I think, from the sounds of it, negotiating with you guys. So he drew a line in the sand, and you guys just pushed. And I don't know if you pushed because you thought, your toes had been stepped on, or, your authority questioned. But it seemed to me, if you've got a commissioner and a mayor, I mean, it's going to be unanimous if you guys don't want Benny's, it would seem. But you've got 2 people who are making sense and 3 that just seem pissed off at the owner of Benny's. Now, I'm not sure, if I'm accurate on this, but, anytime I want to do something special, I go to Benny's. I have guests from out of town to go to Benny's. Seems to me in a lot of ways, you guys should be paying him to do everything, to keep all the parking going and people coming. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Up next is Susan Shea. Is Susan here, or does she want me to read? I think she wants to. This is Susan Shea, 1519 14th Avenue North. Benny's on the Beach is a great draw for residents and tourists. It's our only truly oceanfront restaurant and a place where I'm proud to bring out-of-town guests, not to mention the money brought into our community by Benny's. Up next is Kara Jennings, followed by C. Brown. And that's going to be the last one.
We still submit, please.
Yeah, where are you been? Come on up. Wait 1 second, Karen.
Someone else back there.
Okay, just have him bring it up when it's mixed. What? Oh, it's okay, I got it. Go ahead, sorry.
Kara Jennings, 822 North C Street. Although there might be varying opinion on what amount Benny should pay, I think most of us would agree that the lease renewal has been terribly mismanaged. Given the significance of the property and that it's a 10-year lease, the negotiations should have been led by the city manager and the city attorney from the very beginning. And the staff that, did initiate those negotiations did a really bad job. And you had no choice but to not proceed with those initial lease agreements because they were too bad of a deal for the city. The contract, as the lawyer said, requires that you determine the lease rent based on fair market value. And I think there's a gap in information here regarding what is fair market value. This is a decision for you to make as policymakers. It's not about how much you like Benny's or not. It's about what is an appropriate deal for the taxpayers in this city. We talk about empty business fronts downtown and upstairs at the casino and on US 1. How much are we supposed to subsidize Benny's? He's likely grossing $9 million a year. I know he has a lot of staff and they're clearly very devoted and hardworking people. But I think a lot of your taxpayers, don't want you to subsidize a property that someone's making millions on. And they do want him to pay something closer to fair market value. You probably can't get there because his prior deal was such a sweet deal, but getting closer would be appreciated. After the lease was voted down at the last meeting, it was greatly disappointing that the city manager did not put out a statement on behalf of the city explaining what was going on. That vacuum of information allowed this to spiral out of control. Of course, all of Benny's employees are nervous as hell, I imagine. They don't know that Benny's had an option to come back to the negotiating table, or that he was still in a current lease, that the city wasn't evicting him because there was no statement made from the city. And then some of the information that was put out on social media by both the mayor and Commissioner Malega just inflamed things. And that was really upsetting to see, especially to see Commissioner Malega encouraging people to riot on social media.
Don't.
Totally inappropriate.
Just move on.
I understand from doing a public records request that you've had multiple restaurateurs approach the city interested in the property. And in fact, one of them gave you a pretty great offer. And anybody in the public can make a public records request for this information. In fact, something that Lee Lipton said was a non-starter. He refused to pay 6% of his revenue. You have somebody who's approached the city that's more than willing to do that. In fact, he said he'll go up to 10%. So this idea that Benny's is the only option for the pier is just completely ridiculous. He came in here and he did what any millionaire businessman does, and he tried to push you into a deal that was the best for him, but not the best for the city. And I commend those of you who held your ground, and I hope you continue to do so.
Hey, stop it. We don't need that. We don't need that. Thank you. It's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Stowe. Followed by Mary Ann Sullivan. Wow, thank you. Thank you. Richard, are you Mary Ann Sullivan?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, good.
Good evening. I'm at 406 North K Street. I also grew up here. My mother was born on L Street. My grandparents came here in 2010. I'm sorry, 1910. So I've grown up without Benny's on the beach. I've grown up with the pier, the pool, all that stuff. And I would like to see anybody that I think we should all, just look around and look for different options and find somebody that's going to either pay us what we should have maybe that money can go directly to the city and fix the pool. I don't know is the story with the pool, but the city obviously needs money. I mean, the city's had no problem collecting money from us through the utilities because many years FPNL tried to buy it. So if we, instead of talking about, putting Benny's out of business, Benny's got another place right down the street. Everybody can walk down, where Johnny G's used to be. So that's Benny's also. So everybody's all in arms about this pier thing, but I think we should, as a city, look to see how we're going to earn more money. And anybody that's on Benny's on the beach is going to do great. On the pier. I remember when we didn't have a restaurant on the pier. All we had was some concession stands and the fishermen's had the pier, and everybody could go to the end of the pier and hang out. So, I mean, the parking lot's always been full. So I don't feel like Benny's is the be all and the end all of Lake Worth Beach. The end.
Thank you. You're welcome. Up next, Richard Stowe, followed by Ike Baylor. Thank you. Richard Stowe, followed by somebody else.
Hi, this is Richard Stowe.
Baylor after Richard. Are you? Thank you.
Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. First, I want to wish Betty Resch a happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you've been through so much since I met you a couple of years ago, and congratulations on your role as mayor of the city.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I'm not going to go into the whole thing about Benny's, all the analysis, but I will say that there is always opportunity cost involved in decision making. And that, just accepting the original offer, that had opportunity costs too. So, and I also, the other thing I want to say is that this commission, all of you, and I spoke to Commissioner Malega, she is out of town, but Ronaldo, Kim, Betty, Christopher, you've really brought a lot to the city, and you've put in extra hours that I did not see in the previous administration that was serving the city before you were elected. So it really means a lot to me, and I hope people will be respectful of that, even if they disagree with particular positions you've taken or particular mistakes that you make. And I really appreciate some of the public comment, like Peggy Fisher. She always has like a lot of, detail to her and thoughtful comment about her critique. But you've really brought a breath of fresh air into the city, and I encourage you to keep moving forward in that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ike Baylor. Ike Baylor, followed by Rich Raphael.
Hi. First of all, I really kind of want to thank Benny's and this, in this.
I'm sorry, name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
Ike Taylor, 1010444 White Pinto Court.
Where's that?
That's the annexed Letchworth.
Okay.
Lantanen 441. Thoroughbred Lake States. Essentially, first of all, I mean, I do want to thank Benny's and you guys because I'm very into politics. It's the first time I've actually ever been to an HOA meeting or an actual town meeting. So progress, and so it's an interesting experience. Honestly, listen, I came here to originally I've heard but supposedly inside scoop about this, and I've actually came here to support Benny's, but I'm also, to keep emotion out of this. I mean, I think everybody kind of needs to realize it's kind of a business, and the city has responsibility to do what's best for its citizens. Now, I love Benny's. I love sunsets with a Corona over there, but the reality is this is prime real estate. And as much as I do love the feel and the vibe of that's why I always go to Lake Worth as opposed to Delray, West Palm, or any of the above, because it has the feel, the small town feel. But the thing is, I went to UF and I graduated in 1996. And I'm heartbroken every time I go there because things change. Small towns that have that small town vibe, construction money takes over sometimes, and it's a part of life and it's a part of change. So it is sad, but it is a part of life. I just really hope that, honestly, I mean, I think it's a bit embarrassing how this stuff happened, because listen, I've been a businessman and for 25 years. I personally don't understand. I don't understand how small city government work, but I don't understand how there could be 6 months worth of negotiations without everybody in the party knowing what the city's position is. The lawyers really are the only ones making, doing well and making money if they're the ones negotiating for 6 months without really knowing what's doable or what's not. If my kids are, never mind, let me not go there. But bottom line is, listen, I think there's a lot more to the story than each side really kind of puts out. That this is not that, I've heard some things that were pretty disturbing, but I'd like to give it, I actually came here in hopes of finding the juicy little details which matter, because listen, the city is, real estate has gone crazy the last few years. Everybody that has rent, that pays rent knows this. But obviously there has to be a fair way of doing it. And I do believe in integrity. If there's a tenant, or if there's someone that's been here for 20 years and poured blood, sweat, and tears into this business, and there was a good faith effort to reach an agreement, which was reached, to pull it under the rug, I think it's kind of unfair and not American, and not what the spirit of that I hope Lake Worth's commission is all about. So honestly, my gut feeling is that there will be Benny's next year, the year after that. Hopefully the rent's not going to be too high, because the food and beers already, or the alcohol is not overpriced compared to Miami. We don't want it to get to Miami. So bottom line is, I hope that you guys work together and get along and find something that works for everybody. And I'm sure you guys will, or guys and ladies.
Thank you very much. Rich Raphael, followed by Greg Richter. And last up on my list is C. Brown.
Rich Raphael, 832 North J Street. And I've got to admit, I'm more than a little disgusted or dismayed with the city commission's performance over the last couple of weeks. You've been negotiating, the city's been negotiating with Benny's on the Beach, Mr. Lipton, now for 6 months. You've generated 4 leases, and you're still going back to the drawing boards. So how many leases will you get what you're looking for, 5, 6, 7 more leases? I mean, proposed leases. This is, if you don't know the story of Get Me a Rock, that's kind of like the direction you're heading. If you don't know the story, see me afterwards. I don't want to take my 3 minutes up for the Get Me a Rock story. But I'm also finding, having come from the world of mathematics and engineering, I understand the need for data. I also understand the need to specify the data up front before you start projects, so you know whether you can determine whether your efforts are meeting your needs. At the last meeting, I heard commissioners say, well, bring me more data. I did not hear a single commissioner say what data was needed. Again, bring me a rock, specify. Don't make me guess what it is that you want. It was announced recently, we've now lost a 3rd restaurant in the city in a couple of months. Bear's Shack has just announced that they closed. So this commission seems to be hell bent on, riding the righteous road, putting businesses out of business. Yes, you may get your fair price, whatever you think the perfect price is supposed to be, but you're not, or the businesses are not going to be able to sustain themselves and they will all go dark. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you. Greg Richter, followed by C. Brown.
Good evening, Greg Richter, 1202 South Palmway. I kind of want to follow up Rich just said. Just a couple of things that haven't been said tonight. Number one, there was a lease proposal brought up here at the last meeting with a 33% increase in the rent. So it wasn't asking for the sweetheart deal he had before. It was a 33% increase immediately with a 3.5% escalator for the next 10 years. So you guys pushed back on it. You wanted numbers and what have you. As Rich said, I'm a business guy and this process has been going on for 6 months. And for you, if you have concerns and to say that this last meeting, you need more information, I'm going to tell you, the next meeting, you need to come here and say, what do you want? Instead of these guys trying to guess. You're not saying what you want. Come up with a figure, figure it out, and get this thing done because it's embarrassing. And I don't think Benny's is going to go away. This will get worked out, but it's real frustrating when you got teams negotiating and then they come here and you get rejected, but not why. What is it you want? So do your homework, which you should have started doing 6 months ago. Do your homework and come up with an answer at the next meeting. And by the way, when you're doing these analysis, be sure to look at the physical condition of Benny's versus other places you're going to compare. For example, the Casino building is hurricane hardened up to Miami-Dade standards. Benny's is not. So it's a good puff of wind and we could lose Benny's. We talk about the money that Benny's gets on the beach. Go do your math. He's got to put somebody there 17 hours a day, $15 an hour. It's $92,000 that he has to pay in salary if you do the math, plus a 6.5% matching Social Security. So it's $100,000 that he's spending just to staff that. That's the math. So like I said, I just want you to come up with an answer. Okay, that's, what do you want? That's, I think, what everybody's looking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is C. Brown. Is C. Brown here? You want me to read it? Okay, C. Brown, 1510 North M Street.
If you think you're done,
At the end of the movie, The Lost Boys.
I can't see who's there. So if you think we're good, then
It's only 3 ladies.
Madam Clerk, I'm reading. Hello? Oh, she muted herself. Okay.
I didn't realize I was unmuted. I apologize.
Okay. At the end of the movie, The Lost Boys, there is a quote. The problem with this town is that there are too many vampires. I would argue that the problem with this town is that there are too many anarchists and anarchists, hard to say. Well, anarch or anarch, I'm not sure. Every citizen needs to write their Every citizen needs to write their representatives to remove these people who do not represent the people. Okay, that's the last one that we have. It's almost 8 o'clock. Madam Clerk, do you have any public comment cards?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, Bridget A. Beauchain, 27 Sharon Avenue, Torrington, Connecticut.
Folks,
Dear
please
Mayor,
talking down. Thank you.
Dear Mayor Resch, Vice Mayor McVoy, and Commissioners Maliga, Stokes, and Diaz, I'm writing to express my concern over the lease negotiations for Benny's on the Beach. While I am not a Florida resident, I've been visiting the city of Lake Worth Beach for 45 years. During this time, I've enjoyed your beautiful beach, shops, and restaurants. Benny's is my favorite, and while there this winter, I went to Benny's just about every day and enjoyed delicious meals and kindness from their employees who greeted me warmly each day. One of the reasons I enjoy your area is for the relationship developed with the locals. I'm a very strong advocate for support of the local community and small business. It is extremely disheartening to see a businessman who is trying so hard to work with you on renegotiating the lease experience such problems. Mr. Lipton has worked hard to immerse himself in the redevelopment beautification of the Lake Worth Beach area. You have an individual who has not one but two thriving businesses, bringing people like myself to your city and spending much needed money to keep small businesses and your city alive and thriving. In this day and age, operating a business is not an easy endeavor, and COVID increased difficulties. Friends from the area who introduced me to Benny's shared this development with me, and I immediately went online for more information. This included watching the Zoom presentation of your meeting. During the meeting, the matter of parking revenue was discussed. This issue will have a negative impact on revenue if no one needs parking to go to Benny's, public as well as employees. Is it worth it? Speaking of employees, 100 to 200 hardworking individuals will no longer be employed. How will this impact your city? Without working individuals, there is no money to spend. What message does it send to your community and other businesses to see the struggle it is to do business in your city? I encourage you to work together to find a positive resolution to the renegotiation of the lease and look forward to many more years of enjoyable times in your city. Ramsey Stevens, 618 South K Street. Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, I submit this comment as the former chairman of our Charter Review Committee and as a dedicated civic volunteer in our community. At a time when democracy is under threat around the world, local elected leaders hold a unique responsibility to protect our democracy by proving how it can tangibly improve our lives. During my tenure as the chairman of the Charter Review Committee, I had the privilege of working with a truly diverse coalition of neighbors who exemplified what our community can achieve when we collaborate in good faith and find areas of broad consensus. Unfortunately, recent upheavals in our community show that our efforts did not go far enough to ensure our local system of representation equitably fosters the accountability and stakeholdership you as our elected leaders need to do your jobs well. In light of this, I ask you to please consider bringing forth the following 3 amendments to our city charter for citizen consideration at the next election. Number 1, return to 2-year terms. This change will help our leaders stay connected with their constituents and maintain a keen understanding of the community's needs. Shorter terms promote constructive civic engagement. I keep our elected officials accountable and provide democratic legitimacy for major policy changes. It is not a coincidence that it is during a year without elections that our city finds itself angrier and more divided than it has arguably ever been. Number 2, implement a 12-month or greater residency requirement for candidates seeking office. A stronger residency requirement will ensure that only those genuinely rooted in our community can lead, and that they develop contextual and community-based solutions. Number 3, expand the city commission to include 2 at-large or multi-district commissioners elected off-cycle from the mayor. Every academic and professional advocate for good government that I spoke to during my work on the Charter Review Board recommended doing this to ensure better representation for the greater good and to prevent needless factionalism or disassociation between districts. By giving our community the option to vote on these changes, you can help ensure that our future leaders are well equipped to serve our community effectively, foster unity, and work together for our common good. Matthew Portilla, 1301 Cochrane Drive. The people of Lake Worth Beach deserve a full accounting of how a Delray Beach landlord came to invest millions of dollars in existing workforce and affordable housing properties in districts 3 and 4 over the past year, with the intention of converting them to single room occupancy units in direct contravention of our city's comprehensive plan, land development regulations, and direct guidance from city staff and their illegality. These properties are in some of our neighborhoods struggling with the most persistent crime and concentrated poverty, and in proximity to both South Grade and North Grade elementary schools. According to this landlord's own public statements, their proposal was met with enthusiastic support by 4 of 5 members of our city commission in private. Their proposal was also promoted and formally brought forth by Commissioner Diaz at public commission meetings. The longer this commission waits to explain the full story of how our city found the entirety of its affordable and workforce housing stock threatened with being gutted by a Delray Beach landlord, the less faith our citizens will have in their ability to represent the best interests of our community. It is crucial that the City Commission takes immediate action to address the concerns of Lake Worth Beach residents and restore confidence in their commitment to safeguarding our current affordable housing and promoting a safe, inclusive, and thriving community for all. The people of Lake Worth Beach demand full transparency and accountability in this matter. Sam Goodstein, 1717 12th Avenue South, Lot E4. Please save Benny's from being a burden to the city for another 10 years. Please save Lee Lipton from taking advantage of staff not following through on consultant recommendations. Please save our little city from a golf cart parade deficit. Please save the city manager from only counting to 3 when it is just as easy to count to 5. Please accept my thanks for your due diligence and save yourselves from confusing the trials of disagreement with the curse we would suffer if the 5 of you didn't share a love of Lake Worth Beach. Sam Smith, 109 North Palmway. I believe that the Pier Restaurant property should be valued at least on par with the properties located in the casino. While the casino properties are newer and in better repair, the Pier property is unique and draws more customers due to its location over the ocean. It makes no sense for taxpayers to be subsidizing very profitable businesses. Since the city has this once in 10-year opportunity, excuse me, to finally put a lease that is fair to the city should not permit the Pier lessee to once again have a 10-year under market rate. Excuse me 1 second. Tracy Baker, 1601 North M Street. Benny's on the Beach should have their lease renewed. Erin Allen, 208 South Lakeside Drive. At the time of submission of my comment, 2 petitions in circulation in support of Benny's on the Beach and asking the City Commission to do whatever it takes to keep them there have cumulatively garnered 11,683 signatures. This represents not only people in Lake Worth Beach, but thousands of people who come from elsewhere to enjoy our beach and Benny's. The opposing petition has only received 198 signatures. That speaks volumes. Listen to the people. And the last comment I have is from Nick Palyugi, 9 Northeast Street. There are lots of issues facing Lake Worth that warrant an emotional reaction. Longtime residents moving away because of doubling rents, addiction and homelessness, homeowners insurance skyrocketing, etc. But of all of the issues to get upset about, the most important one is obviously preserving the huge public subsidy given to the multimillionaire owner of Benny's. It's so important and invokes such strong emotion that one commissioner became so impassioned, so full of righteous anger at the utter injustice of the wealthy paying their fair share that she encouraged a riot on Facebook. Us little people have gotten used to price hikes and tightening our belts, but we're a little stronger than the fragile millionaires who have Mar-a-Lago memberships on the line. So I thank you, Sarah and Betty, for getting so righteously angry on behalf of Lee Lipton and throwing the whole commission under the bus. Without people like Lee, where would we go to pay $10 for a Corona? Madam Mayor, that's the last comment.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ignore the fact that there were personal attacks in that last one because I couldn't really stop you, Madam Clerk. Okay, I think it's 8:03. We're going to take a little break, a little comfort break. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Notice that, well, I have to go. I know. Huh? Oh, yeah. That works. Yeah, but that's not. Yeah. It's a pain. I see. I'll be there. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta get one there. Lake Worth Beach, it's access for the I did, I signed it right away. I was like, right. Just take that right. The bridge would start right with it. Right parallel, and then over. No, he's got it started. And it's only 11 years old. It takes. See that there's. So and I every this is what we're doing.
I make it a little more. I took 73, so you 74. 74? All right. If you want to go.
Madam Mayor, it's 8:16. I can't see if the city manager is, there she is.
Yes,
It's
she is
8:16.
here.
Shall we continue?
I think we might. Why not? Hopefully, we've gone over most of this stuff anyway, so hopefully. We don't- I would like to get home before this day is over. It's no longer my birthday. Okay, so now we have approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I see your light is what,
Yeah, my light is on.
but is that what for what though?
My light is on is I'd like to ask for some clarity.
Wait, is this for the consent agenda?
No, we're done with the consent agenda.
No, we didn't. We're not done with the consent agenda. We didn't have a vote on it, so I have.
Okay.
Commissioner Stokes, you made the motion.
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz, you seconded it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, purchase power cost adjustment update. Mr.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to take a point of order for a moment. We did not handle the Benny's Leach situation very well.
That's not on the agenda right now, sir. And
Well, I'm
and
sorry.
Commissioner
I'm
comments are
sorry.
over.
I'm sorry. I want clarification from this commission to our staff so that they don't go down unreasonable directions and waste time at it. I want.
It is not on the agenda. It is not, sir. It's not on the agenda. We are not there's nothing been added to the agenda regarding it. We had a city attorney report on it. We've had public comment on it. You're welcome to speak with the.
I have already
exactly.
written, I wrote very detailed.
Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to stop this conversation, Mr. McVoy. We're on the purchase power cost adjustment right now. Unfinished business A. Mr. Liberty?
Madam Mayor, with all due respect.
Well, that's
we have
what you
filled this room and we have not provided clear direction to how our staff wants to work. We have two options on the table.
This is not on the agenda, and the more you, Mr. McVoy, raising your voice doesn't really help the situation.
Okay.
It is not on the agenda. There is nothing on the agenda to discuss. We can certainly discuss this privately with our staff. There's nothing on the agenda. So these sort of, coming at the last minute on something that's not on the agenda is unfair to the people that were here, that were interested in that issue. So
It is.
I am going to ask you not to continue. I'm going to ask you, we're going to start on the purchase power cost adjustment, unfinished business A. Mr. Liberty.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners and Vice Mayor. Ed Liberty for Electric Utility. I do have with me Brian King, Assistant Director of Power Generation and T&D Operations as well. We're going to talk about the PCA. This is an item that we talked a little bit about at the last meeting and was deferred to this meeting, awaiting a quorum. But we do have some good news in that fuel prices have continued to come down. And we've been maintaining the data tables, which I think you've all been provided and I believe is in the backup, as well as the curves, which were actually helped be produced by the Vice Mayor and the Commissioner Stokes, which I think are especially helpful and will be a standard part of our package going forward. So we can standardize what this PCA discussion looks like. So for the public at home and of course for you folks here, natural gas prices have come down, and natural gas prices, while they're not a major component of our fuel costs, they're roughly in the range of 50 to 60%, which is certainly major, but it's not 100%. We've been able to benefit from our large nuclear share in our portfolio. So that's held off the pain that we would have felt from very, very high natural gas prices. And of course, coming in the future, which we'll talk about later tonight, is significantly increasing our solar commitment, which would take that natural gas component much, much lower. But nonetheless, we're at a point now where, having raised prices last year on the PCA rather substantially, we're now at a point where gas prices have come back down, and we're beginning to see that we're starting to be over collected. So our leading indicator, which is the actual month-to-month bills that we're getting, show that we've gained ground on reversing the under collection of fuel costs to now where we're slightly over collected. Of course, we also deal with a true-up period, which is in our process. But we do think it's appropriate for you to have a sense of what the leading indicator says. So the leading indicator is showing that we're about $1.3 million to the good now, and we expect that will continue through this month. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian King, and we also do, I believe, have on the phone our rates consultant Craig Shepard from Leidos. There he is. We see him there, so he's here to answer questions as well. But we believe that we are at the point where we can begin to earmark some dollars to be moved over to the soon-to-be stabilization fund, which we'll talk again about at the end of the month, a little bit more formal about how we create that fund. But I'll turn it over to Brian to talk a little bit about what we can do. And of course, all customers should have started receiving a discount today. We lowered rates by about $7, $7 and change per month for the 1,000 kilowatt hour customer, and as of yesterday, actually for May 1. And we're looking to do that yet again for June 1, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Good evening, Commissioners, Madam Mayor. Brian King, Assistant Director of Generation. And you'll see that we have the power cost adjustment for June for you guys to take a look at and review. We have 3 options on this power cost adjustment. Obviously, in option 1, option 2, and option 3. Option 1 does provide for a substantial reduction in the PCA, but does not account for any stabilization fund to be generated. And then you'll see option 2 does allow for a portion, about 500,000, and obviously option 3 for about $1 million of rate stabilization. So obviously with the 3 options, it's up to you guys to figure out what we do. I think it's important to note that if we look at the option 1, so this PCA is designed in the 3 months to either collect or to refund the true-up amount. So if your goal at some point is to create a stabilization fund, and I don't think that the option 1 would be your best scenario. The option 1 would try to pay back the $1 million that we've over collected or so in the next 3 months, beginning on June 1. So you would see a significant reduction in rates, but your ability to create a fund would be severely limited.
So under option 1, we would see an additional decrease of $26.72 per month with a 1,000 kilowatt hour customer, recognizing that as of yesterday, they already got a $7.29 discount, which was certainly well appreciated. And they would get another $26.72. If you were to go with option 2, which would move, I believe, $500,000 into a stabilization fund, the amount would be $22.30 decrease on June 1 instead of $26.72. So roughly a $6 or rather $4 and change, decrease in the amount of decrease, if you would. So the bills would go down by $22 and change instead of $26 and change. Option 3, which would have you move approximately $1 million over to the fund, if I understand it correctly, would be about $17.88. We do believe that now, as prices are coming down, is the time to begin to build that stabilization fund. That this would be a lot harder to do if prices were going in the other direction. So this is the time to begin to do that. The leading indicators, as I mentioned, are that we are certainly in the over collection mode at the moment. And we think that that will continue through the month of April or into May a little bit, but not at the rate that it was going before. When we look at natural gas prices going into the summer, they're certainly staying below $3. And that's a good sign. I do have to remind everyone, we talked about this quite a bit at the last meeting, that the precursors for what happened last summer are still existent in the marketplace. And I don't think they're as probable as they were a year ago, but those underlying cause factors are still present and will be for many, many years. So I do think that this is the time to think about building a stabilization fund. I think we can, Craig Shepard can remind us on the ranges that we talked about at the last meeting, which I believe started in the low $2 million range of what you might ultimately choose to fund the stabilization fund at. Maybe Craig, do you want to remind us of what those numbers were?
Yes, we were looking at a target of between $2 and $4 million to build up to the fund. I think option 3 before you tonight is your best option. I would recommend you put $1 million in now, and if things go ahead like we're looking for the rest of the year, you'd probably be able to put another $1 million the next time you do this in the next quarter. So, as things stand now, you're over recovering, which is good news. And I think, Commissioner Stokes had a good idea, look at the rest of the year at least. Where would we be if we do $1 million now? I think the indication is that you can put another $1 million in next time and you'd be well on your way to your target.
And I would add to that if you count the $7.29 discount, which customers began getting yesterday, that would be approximately $25.17, according to the calculation. Total decrease in bill per 1,000 kilowatt hours as we head to the summer months, while also putting some money into that stabilization fund for the potential increase. But this is obviously something that we're going to have to watch very closely and bring you those leading indicators and continue to monitor it for an opportunity to reduce even further. We're somewhat optimistic if we look at the way natural gas prices are trending. They appear to be trending below where rates were at when we started the PCA in December of 2021. So it looks like we could actually lower the rates at some point back below where they were. Now, I say that, take that with a grain of salt. It's wishful thinking. I don't want to jinx it, but we're depending on where those markets go. The good news is that at the end of this year, we begin flowing 50% of our 26.55 megawatts of solar will start flowing in December. So we're now on that point where we're going to see the turn downward in our purchases of fuel or purchases of energy that's coming from a fuel source such as natural gas. So not only in pricing will our exposures decrease, but certainly our carbon footprint is going to get much better as well. And that will continue for the next few years. And we're going to talk more about Solar 3 later on.
You guys finished? All right. It was Commissioner Stokes, Diaz, McVoy.
Yeah, I just want to say for option one I don't think option one should be on the table. It's not on the table for me right now because it does have us setting a rate built on like a refund, which I think would just set us up to not creating our rate stabilization fund and then also setting us up to a potential rate increase down the road because we'd be setting a rate based on adding in a rebate. I think we can lower the rate significantly without going so far as to set us up for an increase later. I do favor option two. I think the way that this is laid out, and I know we're working to try to refine how we want everything done, is a little bit it's combined where we're showing like how we're setting the rate with what we want to transfer to the rate stabilization fund. And I'd like to see that separated out a little bit more in the future. I know we're working with our finance department to actually get a fund where we can transfer that money. Because right now it's showing for option two, it would show the $281,000 that we could transfer over to the fund, plus another like $220,000 that we anticipate collecting in the next 3 months. But it doesn't show that we have $1 million from March that we could, if we had a fund, like we could transfer the $280,000 from February and the $1 million from March today, and then not even consider that in our rates that we're setting. As we heard in April, which has ended now, we know what we paid for fuel. We know what we don't know the exact numbers, but we know that we are going to get another potential $1 million. So the way that I'm viewing it is that we already have about $2.5 million that once we have that fund, we can probably transfer it over. It doesn't need to be part of the rate structure. And then for the month of May, we're only going to see that $7 decrease. So we'll probably still continue to over collect in the month of May. So by the time this rate decrease takes effect June 1, I think we'll already have enough to meet our goals of the rate stabilization fund. So I think option 3 is a little more aggressive than it needs to be, which is us trying to collect another intentionally trying to collect another $720,000 over June, July, and August, which I don't think we need to do. I think we're in good shape without that. So that's why I support option 2.
Thank you. Do we have a fund? Do we have a balance in that fund now?
No, we track it on spreadsheet. There is no formally organized fund per se. It's existed in language of resolutions for many, many, many years. But for some
But it's
reason,
never been funded.
the fund itself was never actually created. But we do intend to create that fund, and that's what we'll bring back to you at a future meeting, because we need the rules of governance and how money is put into the fund and under what conditions you decide you want to remove it.
Use
So
it,
staff
yeah.
doesn't make that decision.
Right.
You all would make that decision. I would add too that the reason that March is not shown in the report is that the deadline for submitting the report is such that we don't have the March numbers at the time of that deadline. So they actually came in afterwards. So those are numbers that we sometimes will have in time for the meeting itself, but not in time to put into the backup.
Okay.
But in the future, we carry those numbers literally in our pocket. Hey, we just got these numbers. For example, I think they came in on a Friday, right? I think we got the bills on that Friday, which was the 20th, and the meeting was the following Tuesday. So there was no way we could have gotten into the agenda and do all the calculations and meet the requirements. That's going to happen in every cycle. There's always going to be that middle month, which then gets caught in the next true up. And it's not forgotten, but if we do use the leading indicator, as Commissioner Stokes has suggested, you can see now that we have gotten the bills, that we do have a surplus there of actually 1.3 million. So, and that will continue a little bit until we close out the next true up. So you can intercept it a little bit by saying, I see the trend. Let's jump ahead on a little bit and start moving some money into the fund. So I think it's very helpful for that.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
I do appreciate seeing option one, only because it's like an example of how things used to be, and it's like definitely not do that. So, you know, as this month gets collected, I mean, these numbers, the 500 and the million, does that factor in May's collection? No. Okay. Because you know, I'm looking at both, and it's hard to it is hard to choose, because you know, I look at this. I definitely obviously put a priority on lessening our utility bills on our customers, but I'm also looking at how much money is going to be available, and I'm, you know, just eternally worried that we're going to have to dip into this fund sooner than we realize. And things are trending down, but I don't want to put us in a position where we need to use those funds. You know, who knows what would happen? I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to jinx it. But you know, I'm kind of in the mindset that we should get to that 2 to 4 million ASAP, and then we can revisit lowering rates. So it's a tough call for me, because it is significant. I think $1 million itself would provide a significant help if we ever had to exercise that. You know, like if we had to do that in the next couple months, $1 million would probably be pretty significant help on people already. So I'm kind of leaning more towards that one myself.
I'll add that we do a few things. For example, we forecast how many kilowatt hours of energy we're going to sell. Year to date, we're 5% higher than the same period prior year. So we've assumed a conservative growth of about 3% over the prior year, instead of we don't want to presume that the 5% we've seen year to date will continue, because we know it's been unusually warmer than the prior year, but we've used the 3% escalation here in terms of how many sales. So the higher the sales forecast, the lower the rate, right? So we don't want to make the sales forecast so high that it upsets it. Between us, we have some scoops of ice cream at stake as to what's going to happen in May. But we're optimistic that prices will continue to stay low and get us through the month.
Thank you, Mr. McVoy.
Thank you for doing the analysis and helping us, and certainly that we are now discussing the rate stabilization fund, the idea. Do you happen to have that you could put up on the screen for us this curve for the one for March and the one that ends in February?
That would. I'd have to ask the clerk to put we don't have it in the presentation slide, but it is on the backup. And it was.
Sorry, what are you looking for, Mr. Liberty?
There's a page with 2 graphs on it associated with the PCA.
That's not part of the PowerPoint that you sent me?
No, it's not part of the PowerPoint. It was in the backup for of the staff report itself.
It's page 54 of the agenda.
Okay, it might be in last week's. Let me see.
Yes, it's the revenues and expenses through March of 23. Two graphs in red and blue lines.
It sounds like actually well, I mean, you could guess it from we could work backwards. Yeah, that's the graph, the one that the mayor has up. It's this one. For what that's worth. We talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, that all it is just accumulating and plotting the cumulative revenues and expenses. But what it lets you see is that in February, that red hump that went up, which was that we were in the hole to our supplemental payments, we by February had evened out. We were there. And then by end of March, we were collecting more. Yeah, there it is.
Perfect, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
I don't know whether you can zoom in on the lower one. The lower one, and the little tail ends of it is the business part of it. Perfect. There you go. That separation that you see in March, where the blue goes above and the orange is now below, that's that over collection, and that difference in the March data is my recollection. I haven't looked at it in a couple of days. Is about $1 million there. And if you project that forward, just a straight line projection of both the blue and the red, it's going to be even bigger than $1 million, is my guess. And that would get you through April. Then May will start shifting because the revenues are going to bend because we've lowered it by 7. So all bets are off at that point as far as.
Well, I had 2 scoops ice cream on that, so.
Yeah.
Well, now wait a minute here. If you're betting on my graph, I need to have a cut there, at least a scoop. But and I guess the intent is that we start adding these in so that we can see on a monthly basis how we're doing. And it should be quite helpful that we'll see that the revenue will bend a little bit as we've made the $7 adjustment. And then again, when the next one kicks in.
Well, let me ask a quick question though, just to make sure we match expectations. Is your expectation to see these curves monthly as an agenda item, or just to have them sent to you?
I would stick them in. Yeah, I would put them in the, we have a monthly meeting.
In the director's comments at the front of the
Yeah,
meeting?
something like
Put
that.
that slide up?
Yeah.
Together with the table?
Sure.
So we can, just want to make sure we meet expectations.
Yeah, I think that it gives us the monthly level, because the whole 3-month thing is hard because you're missing months. And this way, we're not using it, setting it necessarily, but using it to inform ourselves. So I think that's helpful. I would feel comfortable, certainly wouldn't feel comfortable with option 1. Let me ask one question. If we chose option 2, does that put 500 in each month? Or is that a one shot for this 3 months true-up period?
One single placement, one shot. For the 3 months.
Then, and I'm thinking out loud, so correct me if I'm off base here, but I'm thinking that if we're already $1 million collected over for March, we're likely to be a bit better than that for April. Hard to say for May because it's going to be backed off a little bit, but we were still up by 20 or so, and we've come down by 7. So there's still going to be some noticeable coming in. So it sounds like there'll be quite a bit of surplus. I would say we could be more aggressive about putting into the rate stabilization fund, but correct me if I'm not thinking right.
No, I think you're along the right path, but we're trying to get to in the minimum, I think, of the range that Leidos had recommended was about $2 million. So we're trying to get to about that $2 million number. So if we move $500,000 off, it slows the trajectory. And I think we'll be pretty close to the $2 million minimum. We can take a look at it again. So.
Well, okay, I lost it. I was going along good until the last part. Assuming that Yannick tomorrow morning creates the fund some magic way, I don't know how you do that, but Yannick, I'm sure, knows how. What would we put in there at this point? Would we put in only the 500 when this 3-month thing truly comes into place, or would we put other stuff that we already have? You
What-
mentioned that we'd be close to the 2 million.
The spreadsheet would then have to have an additional column to it, which is amount that's set aside specifically for stabilization fund. And the other column would be the running balance without the amount that's in the stabilization fund. So we don't conflate the two.
Right. We don't want to spend it twice or
Correct.
have it twice.
Correct. So that
seems reasonable.
500, would be, I don't know, make sure the term is maybe in the lockbox pending the formation of the actual.
But
fund.
you had mentioned that things look pretty good. We'd get to the 2 million. I'm having
My
trouble
gut says,
following
so
that.
I'm gonna just do some real rough numbers in my head. So if let's say we're at effectively at 1.3 now, take 500 off of that, we're at 0.8. And we do another million, that gets us the 1.8. And then we go through May, right? Another million for April. And we go through May. Then maybe they get to, 2.5-ish to, I'm just very, very rough numbers. If we do as much as $1 million a month, but that's very, very rough guessing. The important thing is for us to look at it each month.
Right, right. So I'm still, and maybe I'm being dense or something, which is quite possible. If we do option 2, we're agreeing to put 500 in. How does
Goes
the
into the
other
lockbox.
parts get in?
I think it's confusing because option, like I said, we're combining two things here. Like we could have, if we had that fund.
I'm sorry, is your mic on, Commissioner?
Sorry.
Yeah, and I need to
Thank
recognize, actually, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. If we had that fund today, we could put 1.3 million in it. Today.
Well, that's why Yannick's going to make it
Right.
tomorrow morning.
And at the end of next month, we could probably put another million in it. And at the end of May, we'll probably, maybe another 500,000. So everything that's in this formula is for June, July, and August. So this is saying, let's collect another amount of money in June, July, and August. And it doesn't account for what's sitting in our fund right now, other than the 280,000. It doesn't account for what's sitting in our fund right now after March's numbers came in. It doesn't account for what's going to be sitting in our account this week once we figure out April's, and it doesn't account for what's going to be in there after May, which will be a surplus. So I feel like by the end of May, when we vote to transfer the money into the fund is one thing. This is not a vote to transfer $500,000 into a fund. This is a vote to say, do I want to collect $500,000 more in the summer months when our electric bills are the highest to put in a fund that we probably were already going to have millions of dollars in sitting in? And I don't, that's my interpretation of it. And that's why I vote for option 2.
Okay. Are you done, Mr. McGuire?
And I'm seeing a nod that sounds about right. So basically the 500, if we went with option 2, that's what we would collect to put into that fund in that 3 months, the July, whatever it is, June, July, August, or July, August, September.
500 a month?
Right. No, not 500 a month, 500 total for the 3. And we already have a fair amount of extra that we've been collecting, and we haven't formally said we're going to do it, but our intent is move that over. And I see Yannick nodding, so that's a good sign. So yes, that explanation, that helps. So that gets us to somewhere on the 2 million range, likely. And so that's pretty good for the rate stabilization fund.
Right. And I think the sentiment is good. We want to get our customers relief before the heavy usage season begins.
Right. And we don't want to over collect in that if we're already, we've been doing fairly well.
And
Okay.
And if it continues, we'll want to get them more relief because we don't.
Right. Exactly. Let's look at it. So I'm in at option 2.
Okay, my turn. Couple questions. Did we decide that $2 million was, did we come to a figure of a fund that we think we should get?
No, that was in the range of options that we discussed.
Right.
So
It was
we don't- we
between
can't-
2 and 4.
Right. That's my recollection. But I can't imagine that we would set something lower than that. So we're
Yeah, no,
that's why
I'm thinking it's low,
Right.
if we get hit really hard.
Right.
So that's my first question. And do we have to come to a point where we give you that figure, decide on that figure?
Yes, we'd like to do that at the end of this month, have a more detailed discussion to lock that down.
Okay, my next question is, it looks like the difference between option 2 and option 3 in terms of the the customer, what the customer would, the reduction of the customer's cost would be about $4.42. If we went with option 3, it'd be $4.42 higher than option 2.
Looks about right.
Well,
25.17 versus.
I used my
29.
computer because I'm bad at math.
Yeah.
Okay, so my feelings are, it's a $4.42 difference to the customer at the end of the month. I'm very concerned about the fact that we don't have a good, solid fund if we get hit and FEMA doesn't drive up and go, here's a chunk of money for you. I'm concerned about that. I think 4 is actually conservative. I would like to see more in that fund. And I think that for the difference of $4.42 a month, I think, I don't know if I misunderstood you, Mr. Diaz, but it sounded like, I would vote for option 3. Go fast. We can always reduce it later on, but get that money in the bank because we don't know what the season, and with everything that's going on, the tornadoes in Palm Beach Gardens the other day, we don't know what's coming. And so I think I personally would be, and I think for the city's sake, we would be better off having as much money as we possibly can in that fund and still reduce the rates. So, Mr. Diaz?
First, Yannick moved a little bit closer. Did you want to say anything?
He's stalking us.
Just clarify.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that
math.
Yeah, I mean, that was helpful because I am thinking that way, but if this is 500,000 on top of money that's already going in, bringing us closer to that minimum goal, I'm more comfortable with that because that was my main concern. And, my thought is, so the unpredictability of climate, right? Climate warming, it's becoming an issue. And last week, the reason why I was on Zoom is I was at a conference, Waterkeeper Alliance conference, and, we got a presentation from a pretty notable Florida climate scientist and ag engineer, Dr. Capiz, and he ran the numbers in his, very high level way. And basically the takeaway was looking at what happened to Fort Lauderdale recently. The headlines labeled it 1,000-year storm, and his numbers and what he pointed out is those are the old numbers. That's wrong. And they actually got, like, I forget what the numbers were, so I don't want to quote it, but I mean, it was nearly their annual rainfall in the matter of hours. And it really tested their infrastructure very clearly. And basically what it came down to is that was actually a 1 in 100-year storm. And what that equates to is that means from now on, every year, there's going to be some place in Florida that's going to get that test.
So my question to you then is, isn't it better to accumulate as much as we can, as quickly as we can, so that when something like if something that we have the money in the bank, we can always back off? That's my question.
Yeah.
Why not get it while we know we can get it?
Right.
I see your point.
And I'm sure Carmen has an answer, or Ed or Brian. And that was why I think that clarification from Yannick and Commissioner Stokes was helpful. If we can still get to that goal with option 2, if you guys are confident in that, then that's good.
But that's the $2 million.
The $2 million minimum
goal.
Right. And then we keep adding to it with time. Yeah.
And don't forget, you guys can always decide, if you decided it's taken too much, or if there's other options, you could turn around and lower the PCA and give it all back. I mean, we are coming into hurricane season. We don't have a storm fund, and not that this would be a storm fund. That's for you guys to decide what to do with any stabilization or any excess funds that come from the PCA. But these things are coming. That time of the year is getting here. And if you've decided at some point we've taken too much, you can always just turn around and give it back.
Right. And that's kind of my thought was like, I think I've asked this of you before, Ed, maybe on our one-on-ones or maybe in a utility meeting is, I would love the confidence in, the predictability in climate. I mean, we have the graphs, they're great. They're getting, climate obviously is getting more unpredictable. we're lucky nobody's going to be firing up their heaters in December. But if the rest of the country does in a very significant way, it's going to affect us price wise. And I just want to make sure we get in as good of a place as possible if that happens.
Madam City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say, certainly, I truly agree that we need to be prepared for weather situations. But I want to make sure, maybe I'm not clear in my mind, and I want to make sure we are clear in the usage of the stabilization fund. The stabilization fund, and correct me, Brian or Mr. Liberty, that is used for the PCA rate or our costs for fuel or increases related to fuel, as opposed to weather event costs. Are we on track with that, or is it a separate fund that covers the damages from a weather event?
No, good points. We don't have a storm fund per se. We fund our storms out of a current fund balance, and if the utility has enough fund balance, great. And usually we don't, and we actually wind up using general fund balance or city's fund balance. So it would be wise to build a storm fund. There's currently no defined rules around this stabilization fund. It was written into the books many years ago, but never actually created. So it would be incumbent upon all of us to write those rules and for you to approve them in such a way that you could use them for storm. I would suggest that the rules be very, very tight, and for not only for you, but for future generations of commissioners.
I just want to clarify. I don't suggest using it for storm. I'm saying, like, if the rest of the nation has a substantial blizzard, and that's going to affect our fuel prices. That's what I meant in terms of climate unpredictability. Yeah,
absolutely. We've seen it happen both in hot months, like last summer when gas prices got into the $14 and $15 per million BTU range in the peninsula. We also had an unexpected spike, I believe, in February or January the year before, if I remember correctly, when there was a problem in Texas, when the generation failed to run and gas prices, went through the roof. And we hit a very, very high spike for power costs in that month. I think it was February of 21, right? That time frame. So it could happen any time of the year when we suddenly see this unexpected spike. Now it came back down quickly in March and April, but it did really go through the roof for that month.
Okay, then I have a question. I appreciate Ms. Davis asking that question. So this fund that we're talking about, you're saying we don't have a storm fund.
That's correct.
But so at this point, there's no rules about what this fund that we're creating is going to be used for.
Correct.
Okay. So when we'll decide that at some point,
we can make suggestions, and you as policymakers could then enact the policy and act on it.
Okay. So it could either be used to stabilize the rates in case things go up. We don't have to raise the rates. Correct. Okay. And I'm just really concerned about the real weather and what it does to us. So I would hate to see us limiting it to only that use. I mean, we'll talk about that more, but as I think about it, one big hit and we'd be in trouble. We have no funds to.
I think contextually, one could argue that if we had a very big hit to our financials because of a storm, it would really hit our base rates significantly, and therefore a rate stabilization fund might help that.
Okay.
So it would not have to be used exclusively just for a PCA price spike, but you'd have to write the rules in such a way to make it clear, not only to yourself, but to successors, that that was the intended purpose of it. And that's your role as policymaker, to decide that you want to have that latitude to do that.
Okay, and that would be to stabilize the rate.
Whether it's a base rate or a PCA rate.
Base rate or the PCA, okay. Okay, so if we ran into trouble, we would use it for that, which would keep it.
Right. And it would be, I use the term lockbox, but it would be in this stabilization fund, like any other fund, that would have some pretty strict, I'm assuming you would put some strict rules around what it was intended for.
So what happens if we have a big storm and we don't have any money in the bank? Is my question.
Well, I think that happened probably 20 years ago, and I'm not sure how the utility handled it at that time, but I'm not sure if it came out of the city's general fund or if the utility had enough of a fund balance to carry it through the storms.
And do we have a fund balance?
Waiting for the audited financials.
Oh, fine.
Right.
Mr. Yannick.
Yes, Yannick Genahaya, Interim Finance Director. So, as you know, the electric fund, the unrestricted fund balance for the electric fund has always had issues. It's been negative for so many years. We've tried to catch up. I believe in fiscal year 21, it was like negative 1.3 million. So even fiscal year 22 it's gonna get hit a little bit because we had the fuel costs, the hike in the prices of fuel costs. So, and as Ed mentioned, we never really had a storm fund. So even in fiscal year, I believe 22, it was in December. Was it September when we had a hurricane? They had to use approximately $1 million out of their operating budget for hurricane preparedness. So with that said, you know, the stabilization fund should be, I would strongly recommend that we separate that fund from the storm fund. Yes.
And
so
maybe
that-
get a storm fund?
Start
a storm fund?
Yes, start a storm fund. I think I was just talking to Ed about it this afternoon.
And how would we do that?
It's a policy. We just have to
No,
create
but
that fund.
financially, where
and
would the money come
financially,
from?
we could, well, when a hurricane happens, all the funds gets affected. So we could create a contribution from all the funds on a yearly basis, just to create some kind of savings just for that emergency. And if there is an emergency, if an emergency is declared, I think the commission has the authority to use any excess funds from pretty much anywhere because of that emergency. And when that happens, we have a track record where whatever the funds are being spent from, those funds will be reimbursed at a future date as we get from whoever, from the fund that's responsible. Like for instance, if from FEMA, et cetera, right?
So yeah, thank you.
Correct. So I mean, if it's a declared emergency, let's say we get a category 5, we'll just have to dig in whatever funds that are available.
That sounds so sketchy.
It is, but at the end of the day, it's an emergency. So that's where the cash is coming from. And so.
So if I may, there's a number of different options. So one option could be to create the stabilization fund with the latitude to also use it for storm. So make it combined PCA stabilization and storm. That's one option. The other option is to leave the stabilization fund when we write it purely PCA, and then separately in our base rates, increase our base rates. So we add, let's say, $500,000 a year over about a 4-year period. That would create about $4 million. I'm sorry, about $2 million for a storm fund in the base rates. So you would be building it in 2 places. And I guess maybe the third option is that Yannick is suggesting maybe contributions from other funds.
Yes.
So there's a number of different ways to do it. That all come down to a policy discussion as to how you would prefer to do it.
Okay. I think Ms. Stokes. Oh, no, Ms. Davis.
Oh, no, I was just going to say concerning being prepared and anticipating the cost of a storm or a severe weather event, you can never get to that number because you don't know what that damage is. If it's a Cat 5,
well, so all bets are up. But it'd be nice to have some money in the bank as
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's why communities depend on FEMA at some level. But certainly we should, as we're talking now, develop a policy, develop a plan to build those funds. But certainly, I don't think any community can get to absolute number to finance the repair. Absolutely.
Something.
That's what we're saying. Yes.
Okay, so given and I understand that the use of it better, then I would agree then with option 2, to go ahead with option 2. Do we need to talk more? Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve option 2. But I do want to let staff know I'm very much in favor of keeping our rate stabilization fund separate from our storm fund, because the PCA is supposed to be a pass-through cost. And the more that we can keep everything separate, and then when we have requests for data, everything's neat where it belongs, and we know exactly what we're dealing with. So I'm not in favor of muddying the waters. I'm in favor of keeping it clean, and if we have to pull from it in a declared emergency, that's a different story, but that's not our plan.
Yeah, no, that's right. But I also want to talk about at some point, we need to start like a storm fund.
During the budget, maybe.
An
Yes.
Yeah, an emergency
Yes,
thing.
definitely.
So, go ahead, Mr. McBoy. Do I have a second? We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We'll have a little more discussion, then we'll vote.
My personal opinion on it, and I think this is in the opinion range for all of us, but what Commissioner Stokes said of keep them separate, the suggestion, one of your suggestions, I'm very much in favor of that. And I would be inclined to say, because a piece of what we're doing is trying to make sure that our customers understand why they're getting charged certain things, that we're not, just making it up to, fund the leisure department or whatever it is that people think. Because they do sometimes feel there is that thought out in the community that every time the city needs some money, they raise the electric rates. So I would be inclined to keep the rate stabilization very separate when we get to the stage of writing those rules. Keep it very separate, only for PCA stuff. It's coming out of the PCA. It should go back in the PCA. And yes, I'm in favor with the city manager's comment that you're not going to build up a $50 million fund to cover everything that might happen in Cat 5. It's not going to happen. But should we put something? Should we get a storm fund going? Definitely. I would be in favor of having them both be line items on the bill when we get to the next round of monkeying with the bill. And then there's some explanation of why we have the stabilization that deals with smoothing out the bumps in the fuel cost, and we're making headway to doing that by switching our fuel sources. And then the storm one, which we can't do, I don't think, because the storm expenses are mostly transmission and distribution. That's where the cost comes in. It's not that we're fixing, the supplemental source or we're fixing solar panels. So switching our fuel source doesn't help us much with that. We still need a storm fund. And I think that would be the way to go. Keep it real clear, keep it real separate, so the community understands what we're doing. They can have an idea. How are we doing on our storm fund? Well, this is our target and we're getting there. This is our target.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second and some comments. Do I have a vote? May I call the vote? I'd like to call the vote. All in favor?
Do we have public comment? No? Okay.
Oh, no, there's Kara Jennings said power cost adjustment 4. So and then she left. So, Madam Clerk, do you have any comments?
I do not, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
What are we saying? What is that for?
2.
Option 2. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so very good. Moving on. Next up is
Actually, one really quick thing about that. Sorry, but we talked about this one-on-one with Ed, and I think since it is a rate decrease, we talked about maybe having a little bit of not necessarily pride in it, but can we do press release, be more open about it? And that's going to happen, right?
I would suggest that our public information officer issue a press release to that effect. And I can certainly add a statement, but I'll let the PIO, draft that and issue that.
Good idea. Thank you.
Really 2 of them, one for the 7 and one for what we're doing now.
Correct. And then
or at least mention that.
Yeah, that's a good thing to be in the press for, right?
Exactly.
And not have customers just surprised. Hey, my bill. Just let's get some good news out there.
All righty, moving right along. We are now going to the switching gears. The alcohol new business A, alcohol beverage distance waiver to allow package sales of alcohol beverages at the existing Family Dollar at 2507 North Dixie Highway. When we say alcohol, do we mean beer and wine or also hard liquor, just beer and wine?
It depends, Madam Mayor. For this particular one, this distance waiver is only for beer and wine. But in the code provisions allow for a distance waiver. So there's a distance requirement of 500 feet from the parcel line to protected land uses and other basically package sales. So let me go ahead and pull up. I have a PowerPoint real quick and we can walk through that.
What's the protected land? The water, the canal?
The protected land use is residential, churches, parks.
Okay, you'll show me where they are.
It's not environmentally protected. It's protected against adverse impacts. It's a zoning kind of.
It's close to Spillway Park, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't pour that wine in the water.
Okay.
While she's pulling that up, I'll give you a little bit of history on how this came to be too. On the previous commission, we had several alcohol waivers and they were discussing the distinction between consumption on premises and consumption off premises. And that commission asked that consumption off premises or package sales come to them for distance waivers, whereas the other types of waivers, when it comes to consumption on premises, stay with the advisory board, the Planning and Zoning Board or the Historic Resource Preservation Board. And there was concern about the proliferation of package sales at one point in the city.
Okay. So this Family Dollar, or you have a PowerPoint?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So this is, as you stated, a consideration of an alcohol beverage distance waiver to allow package sales at the existing Family Dollar store. This is at the Arbor Square Plaza at the north end of town. The address is 2507 North Dixie Highway. It is in the mixed use Dixie Highway zoning district with future land use of mixed use east. You can see here's a picture of the Family Dollar. The Family Dollar was approved in 2020 by the Planning and Zoning Board as a conditional use for the grocery store. At that time, the Family Dollar stated that they were interested in coming back and eventually doing package sales of beer and wine at a later date. This is why this is before you today. The Planning and Zoning Board heard this item on April 5th and recommended approval of the distance waiver. And so what I have here is a site plan, and you can see in yellow the location of the Family Dollar. And really why staff considered we typically don't provide a recommendation or we don't recommend approval on these generally. But what was of interest here is that because the Family Dollar is so far to the rear of this particular parcel, it's actually over 700 linear feet to any home, any park, or any other package off premises sales. The only other alcohol sales in this particular plaza are associated with the pizzeria, and they serve beer and wine. You can go and get a pizza, and it's a restaurant. It's a restaurant.
Erin, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we still just see the first slide.
I'm sorry.
Nothing has advanced.
Isn't there a liquor store on North Dixie Highway that used to have a drive-through, but they had to get rid of the drive-through? Is that far enough away that it's, okay. And the measurement of the foot measurement starts at the property line. So that's the distance. Okay. What's in the building that used to be the Winn-Dixie? What's going on there?
We were just discussing that while we were waiting for this item to come up. It was my understanding there's a grocery store coming. And I thought the lease was in process, but we'll check and get back to you on that.
Could it be a Trader Joe's? Could it be something nice?
So yeah, we don't really have a say in.
I know. If you want to
decisions.
control it, you got to buy it is kind of what happens.
So I think, is it moving forward now? Melissa?
I see the site plan. Yep, I see the site plan. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know.
What are the store hours?
Go ahead.
They close at 9 o'clock at night.
They close at 9.
And I.
Okay, I was a little out of, I was a little out of turn.
Let me just go ahead and get through this for you guys. So of course, this is not working at all. I'm just gonna stop this share and then end the show. Because I don't know why it does this. So, but basically, we just.
You want me to see if I could pull it up?
No, it's okay. I'm just going to share the analysis map and then just be done with it and just talk about it. Okay. So you can see this map and we can just see the store here. In your staff report package, it has the different criteria. And then those are in actual they're in section 5.5 subsection D. And basically one of the main criteria is basically, is this within 500 feet? And if it is, you need a waiver. And then you need a waiver, is it going to impact anything else? And is it going to be near another licensed establishment? The fourth one is a high standard. It's whether the waiver promotes health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. We just basically said, I don't know that any alcohol sales.
Really? There's a judge much?
So it's a pretty high standard, but what we basically said is because it's kind of so insular to this particular plaza, you have to really be going there for beer and wine as a destination. You wouldn't just go there to buy a bottle of wine. You most likely be in the store itself, in the Family Dollar. So we just didn't feel like it was going to negatively impact the neighborhood. And that's kind of what we said in our recommendation is it's greater than 500 feet. There's no other off-premises alcohol sales. So you can't go anywhere in the plaza and buy a bottle of wine. The nearest liquor store is down the road in the plaza with the Brit Mart on the corner, across Dixie. And there's some conditions of approval. So if you decide to support the waiver, we would also ask that you include the staff conditions of approval. I know we have the applicant from Family Dollar, and I know he wanted to talk about the Family Dollar policies and their training and things like that relate to how they manage alcohol sales as part of their business.
And I know the hour is late, so I will try not to go on too long. James Bally and I, at 1100 Circle 75 Parkway in Atlanta, but we represent Family Dollar across the nation on alcohol licensing. And the store in front of you today, as you see on the screen, is located in Arbor Square Shopping Center, which is 6.6 acres. And different states, different jurisdictions measure differently. But Florida happens to measure, you heard it briefly, parcel to parcel. So the fact that we're in a 6.6 acre parcel, if we were on our own parcel, there would be absolutely no issue with the distance. So I think the closest was 700, but when you get to the park, it's like 1200 and keeps going out from there. When you go front door or from our property line. We did have a good pre-filing meeting with staff. Staff has recommended approval. We agree with their conditions that they've asked for. I think they're reasonable. We'll stay on the record. We consent to those. I did provide a letter to staff as well that gave some background information on Family Dollar for those who may or may not be familiar with it, included an advertising circular. So you can see we sell name brand products, the same thing you would find in a small grocery store. We do not sell discounted alcohol. It is the same beer and wine you would see at Publix or wherever you may be doing your grocery shopping. And we do like to provide that option, a safe family-oriented option for a family that may be doing other shopping in that shopping area, would like to buy a bottle of wine and take home for responsible consumption with their family. It's only beer and wine. I think I mentioned that earlier, but no liquor at all. We also have a vigorous training schedule at Family Dollar because we know it's a privilege to both do business here and also to offer our customers the option of alcohol. And so we have, in addition to whatever's required by the state or local jurisdiction, we have intensive training on how to recognize fake IDs. We use handheld scanners. We provide specific training on things that are specific to this jurisdiction. Just two examples I can think of. In your alcohol code, you prohibit anybody from serving to someone who appears to be intoxicated, whether it's for on or off premise consumption. And we provide specific training to an associate before they go to work at a store on that, which is in your code. We also will provide training on things. One other example is you've got in your code, you can't have obstruction of where the beer and wine is going to be sold visibly. You need to be able to see into it. So we make sure that our stores know not only what the state of Florida requires, but what your city requires. And so as a result of all of that training and our zero tolerance policy, once we provide it to the employees, I'm proud to say that our national violation rate is less than 1%. So we want to get that down, but we're proud of that and would welcome the opportunity to continue to be part of the Lake Worth Beach community. And here to answer any questions I can.
What were the conditions?
Conditions are that they have to have a business license, that they cannot consume
Okay,
alcohol.
those three.
Yeah, and then these are our standard hours of operation, but the store is not actually open those hours. It's just that the waiver goes with the business. If the business were to specifically change, these are our codified standards. So basically, they can't sell basically alcohol after 2 a.m. And not before 7. So if you wanted to reduce the hours of operation for this particular approval, these are our standard hours of operation, but I don't think this business is even open those hours.
And-
So
And we don't have this kind of customers. I mean, if you wanted to say 10 o'clock, we're perfectly fine with that, or 9 o'clock, it's not. But we agree to their conditions,
What?
but we don't need it to be that late.
oh, I'm sorry.
Let me just ask one more question along those same lines. But don't we have like on Federal Highway, the old 7-Eleven, that's not a 7 on between Lucerne and First. They have to stop selling beer and wine at what time? Is it 10?
I thought it was 10,
But
but
they're also, the city's got several grandfathered in alcohol permits that allow some of the places to sell till 5 a.m. in the morning. I think there's 3 of those. There's some other ones that have other limitations on the hours of of sales. This has been in the code since I've been here in terms of the recommended hours of being able to sell alcohol. I know there was a push to allow sale of alcohol earlier in the morning on Sundays, which did not make it through.
Or because I know that's, and I'm under the impression that or it's not 7-Eleven and some of the other 7-Elevens and convenience stores in the city are not allowed to sell beer beyond, I think, is it 10 o'clock?
And Publix too.
Publix is 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been approached by people in that community that run those stores. And I've been, the sheriff's office said, no, there's a crime issues. So that's the quality of this is a little bit concerning to me.
Well, definitely that's a choice you guys can make to reduce the time in which it could be sold. And we could also put on, periodically we prepare a list of text amendments that we collect over time and do kind of cleanup ordinances. And if for off premises sales, if you wanted to limit it in your code at 10 citywide, that's something that we would be happy to add to the list to do. These are the current hours that are in our current code. A lot of these places close at 10, or when they got their waiver, they may have been conditioned in the waiver itself to have reduced hours, but this is from our code. So, so we can change it, and today for this business, you can say 10 p.m., which
We would
is,
welcome that. We don't need to be open till 2 a.m.
If this,
It's pretty good help.
does this waiver stay with this,
With the land.
this storefront with so if Family Dollar decided sometime in the future to turn around and sell it to somebody who does want to stay open past 10, I just want to make sure like we're protecting and doing what we, making sure that if it changes hands, we don't open ourselves up into the weird
right. So I
situation.
think the waiver is to the current business. So it's to the Family Dollar business. So the condition 1 is legally operate package as accessory to the existing business. And so we could actually, if you'd like to change, because I believe we're tweaking conditions, right? So it says the sales as accessory use to the Family Dollar business. And you could actually say in your conditions, Family Dollar business.
I think that would be good.
That if it's sold, if the business is sold, because I have been asked a number of times by the business owners that operate a lot of the convenience stores in Lake Worth to expand it from 10 to midnight. And one of the arguments for that is I'm a nurse. I work a 3 to 11 shift. I go home. I can't buy a 6-pack of beer to take home. And I understand that part of this has been because, well, we don't want people hanging around and drinking beer in the parking lots. But on the other hand, you are affecting a business that can't make as much money. And
Is there another?
You just triggered my memory. Thank you. The city had some really stringent rules when it came to a convenience store in the old zoning code. In terms of they had to be, I think, 1,000 feet apart. There were limitations on when they could be open and operating. There were limitations on how the alcohol could be sold. And at the end of the day, when we're looking at the code back in 2011 and 12, it's like, what's the difference between a convenience store and what Walgreens does? I mean, they sell drugs, but
Or
they also
family,
have all
I
the
mean,
convenience
is this
items.
not a convenience
And so
store?
we don't have convenience store as a use in our code. We have single destination commercial and we categorize it as such. But I'm sure, and based on just 7-Eleven you're talking about has been there as long as I can remember.
Mhm.
And if it goes back and it was approved as a convenience store under the old rules, that's probably why it has such a short limitation on the alcohol sales.
I think I want to look into that because I really think that
can.
from what I'm hearing, the 7-Eleven on 10th and Dixie, I've spoken with these people and they're like, they'd like to be able to sell beer and wine until midnight because at 10, because people get off work late and they want to buy a 6-pack of beer.
And I've heard the same thing you did, that it was creating a public safety issue, that police officers don't want to be going to different places after 10 o'clock at night that are selling beer.
But you can go downtown and get drunk.
Yeah, the on premise versus, I my impression that was a public safety.
Yeah, and I'm having some trouble with
It was, I remember.
Right, that's the reason that was given. But I'm just saying, I question that at this point. Maybe this isn't a conversation for a different day. But if you can go downtown and sit there till whatever time and drink margaritas.
Can we focus it for this gentleman?
Yeah, no,
He
but
needs-
I want to go back to if he's willing, so I want it to be uniform as much as we can. If they're agreeing to a 10 o'clock, then that would be something that would be off the other conversation.
Yeah,
We would-
I believe you close at 10, so.
Yeah, for the record, and the clerk can take this on the record, that we would agree to changing it to Family Dollar and to 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And then if someone else comes, they can come go do what we just did.
That's fine.
Maybe, but not with Benny's.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve with the adjusted condition.
Okay, do I
Yeah,
have-
the staff recommended conditions.
Yeah.
And
All of
plus
it.
the
With
10.
the staff recommended conditions as amended.
Yeah.
there
on the
you go.
record.
Thank you. Which includes Family Dollar and 10 o'clock.
I'll
Okay.
second, but I did have like a minor, just quick question about the 10 o'clock. Is it? I'm pretty sure we all got the email about someone who went into Publix. Publix was still open. They went to the register. They were able to check out and they were able to buy everything but their bottle of wine because it was 10:02. So it's like if you're open till 10 o'clock, those like last minute shoppers that squeak in there at 10
As if
o'clock?
like
Look at
God is
why
gonna
that
come in at
is.
10:02.
Maybe there was a specifics to that approval.
Okay.
Maybe that's a Publix policy as well, because they have certain corporate policies. And we can put a pin in this. And like I said, we collect over time little changes. And then when we bring an ordinance forward, that's why you'll see some ordinances that have some pretty random things
Yeah.
connected together. They're like our tidy ordinance, and we can bring it back to you at a public hearing with comment on that.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimously. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
I remember that
Mm.
drive-through liquor store, maybe not
Yeah,
personal experience, but
well, maybe, or maybe. Listen, you go to New Orleans and you go through the drive-through margarita stands. Drinking a gallon of oh, if you can,
The cow store though, that was out west. What was it?
yeah.
listen, my mother used to send us down to the corner store for beer and cigarettes. Brian is still with Ryan. Hi,
I'm here.
he's here, he's there.
Still
he's
here.
everywhere.
Still here.
Okay. Now we are just gonna scroll down. Okay, this is resolution 10/2023. Is that what we're talking about? Sub-regional wastewater.
Sub-regional wastewater payment. Yes, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Brian Shields, Water Utility Director. Yeah, this item is sort of a finance cleanup item. What happens is at ECR, the Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, we, as part of the interlocal agreement, are required to keep a 1% of the plant's asset value in a reserve fund. So the city of West Palm Beach establishes that every year, then we contribute in during our monthly payments to keep that reserve up. And just FYI, the asset value is $500 million. So we keep a $5 million reserve for occurrences like this, where the spending by the contractors on the CIP has been a little bit quicker than the city of West Palm Beach anticipated. So they drained a little bit more from the reserves than they normally did. So they've invoiced us for $240,000 and change to bring it back up to the required minimum. We in turn pass those costs along onto our sub-regional partners, so they share in this So for us, it's about 40% of $240,000.
And we have the money.
We have the money sitting in reserves because we do the same thing on the sub-regional level. We keep an asset value reserve for occurrences just like this.
Okay.
So,
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You are brilliant at explaining things, really. Nope. You just come in and say it and we.
thank
go
you.
your way.
I
Thank
try to
you
get
so
to the
much.
point.
Yeah.
I'm
with
sorry,
you-
Madam Mayor. Was it the Vice Mayor who made the motion without his mic on?
It was.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I got the next
I got
item
the
as
next one.
well.
I'm moving right down here. Resolution 11-2023 for the non-ad valorem and 2020 consolidated utility revenue bonds reauthorization.
Okay, again, Mayor and Commissioners, this item is related to the bond issues that were floated in 2020. One was an operating bond, the 2020A, and the other was the consolidated utility bond. Now, we had projects that these bond issue funds were dedicated to that came in under budget, which is a good thing. So we're left with excess bond proceeds, and bond counsel has recommended that we transfer them to projects that are in progress right now or upcoming that we expect are going to be a little more expensive than we estimated in 2020 due to inflation and other factors. So this is on the bond council's recommendation that we transfer monies and have this officially done by this resolution so that it's dedicated to these upcoming projects in both water, sewer, as well as stormwater projects.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Once again, you've just done it.
Okay.
Just a little comment, a reminder to our commission that we've talked a few times about the streets that front onto the intercoastal and that we've done in the past, some stormwater improvements, which were great and work well, but in the process, we've made it much harder for non-motorized craft to get in there and use paddle boards, kayaks, that kind of thing. And we've talked, I believe we even talked about spending a little bit of ARPA money, but maybe if we have extra here, that we just do a little bit of reworking of the railing.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Vice Mayor, we are evaluating that as part of the upcoming design for those.
Good.
Okay.
And that's also on some of the existing ones. 18th Avenue comes to mind. I forget.
Wellesley.
Wellesley is one of them, yeah.
Mhm. Yes.
Excellent. That will mean a lot to some of the residents near there, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
All right, next one, agreement with the Solar Energy Loan Fund, item D. Mr. Liberty, I think you're back.
Yes, we are, Madam Mayor. This item is obviously an important step for us in our ability to allow or help customers get the assistance they need to implement energy projects. So for example, we do energy audits for our customers, and obviously as rates were going up in 2022 and early 2023, customers were feeling the pinch, and a lot of them looked for energy audits. I think we did well over 1,000 free energy audits. We were doing them at least 6 days a week, and I think we may have done a few on Sundays as well. So the customers now need help in actually implementing those projects. It's one thing to go in and suggest that they do a bunch of things. It's another thing to hope that they actually do them. Some customers can afford to do it and may in fact do that, and we assume they will. But there's many customers who can't afford to do that. The Solar Energy Loan Fund is an organization that was brought to our attention. We looked into it. We talked about it quite a bit. We talked about it with this group last year at the time of setting budgets, and we thought that they would be very, very helpful for us. I view this group really as filling a void in our portfolio of services that we can bring our customers. We currently don't have the ability as a staff or as a city to help customers implement projects. The Solar Energy Loan Fund is a not-for-profit, I believe. I forget the exact designation, but it's one of the 501c somethings something that does this for customers around the state. They're one of many. They operate in many cities and counties around the state, and by all accounts, have been very successful. We're recommending that we fund them in the order of magnitude of $100,000 per year. And there are very specific performance measures that they have to achieve to continue that funding. So it's not like we write them a check up front for $300,000 and see how it works out 3 years from now. There are very specific criteria that we've talked to them about. They certainly seem very, very capable. They would not be working for the city per se. We create the seed money, In exchange for that, they would hire people, starting with one person that would be located here locally. And in order to help get the maximum impact of the contribution that we make, we would offer in-kind services. So for example, we would house them in our offices. They shouldn't have to spend that money to go rent office space and have the money burned up there. The dollars that we give them are not necessarily to create financing or loans for customers. It's to create the staff, which will help customers then go secure those resources, whether it's grant dollars or contributions. They also have a self-funding through contributions from contributors from all over the country and funds that they raise from prior projects, where they create a loan fund for their customers, and they provide unsecured personal loans to the folks who need help. And these are folks that may not be able to go get a secured loan at a much higher interest rate. So they have the ability to help them with below, or I'm saying not necessarily below market rates, but very, very attractive rates. These are not 18, 19, 20% loans. I believe they're in this 5 to 7% range. I believe they're on the phone tonight if we need them to comment. But we do think this is a worthwhile activity for us to support and to have them come into our community. One of the first things that we would do, besides, starting to work with them, they would then go find the right person to work in our community. And then we would turn over all these energy audits that we've done, and we would try to match them up with the customers. Because the key thing is to now circle back with those customers and say, how can we help you?
Right.
I think I also want to clarify that it's a bit of a misnomer. While they certainly will help customers with solar energy systems, rooftop solar, the first thing they want to do is help a customer reduce their energy use. So it wouldn't make sense to put, for example, solar on a very inefficient home. The best bang for the buck for the customers to help them make that home more efficient, to work on the envelope. So seal up the windows, seal up the doors, add more insulation, put a more efficient air conditioner in, more efficient hot water heater, things like that. Certainly solar is something that can help the customer with them, and we don't intend to put any rules in place that would prevent them from helping customers with solar. If that's what makes sense for the customer, they're certainly welcome to go and do that.
And the $300,000 is salaries and administrative costs, essentially?
Basically, that's my understanding.
But they go out and find the funds to work with.
Correct. And the employees that would be working in this area would be employees directly of the Solar Energy Loan Fund. Correct, not ours, but we want to make sure that they have free access to our offices, for example, and meet with customers who want to get more information, come in and get more help. They would actually come into our offices. They would have use of our conference rooms. We'd make sure they have a desk to work at, access to, the Wi-Fi system so they can communicate and do business here. One of the things that we did not resolve during the budget discussions was exactly how we would fund this. So we talked in concept that certainly it could come out of the utility budget, which is currently not budgeted, but we could certainly fund it out of there. Or we had discussions about possibly using ARPA funds.
Yeah.
That decision was not made. You all didn't choose a path forward, but that's something that we would need to discuss how you would choose to fund that.
Would that come under the budget process then, Madam City Manager? Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
With the $300,000, then we're talking about different ARPA funds uses. That's going to, all our ARPA talk is going to be during budget, correct?
Yes, if there are any additional allocations made. So we already allocated some funds from last budget year. And so we do have some remaining funds that we could allocate.
Now,
this
is
budget.
allocating, it's a little bit off topic with the ARPA funds, is allocating, we have to, my understanding is we have to like commit by the end of 20.
No, we have to spend by the year 2026.
Right, but
So
there's
all
a
the
date
funds must
before
be
that.
spent.
Right, but there's a
Right.
date before that it has to, here comes our
Right.
expert.
We had
Our
to
lifeline.
commit first, and then we had a little.
Yeah, because we've been loose about it, money here, money there, but not really.
Yeah,
specific.
Yannick Gendahayo, Interim Finance Director. So we have to commit, meaning we have to appropriate the funds by December 2024. We have to spend it
By 26.
by 26. So whatever project we commit to, we got to make sure we spend it.
done,
If we
right.
don't spend it, then we
lose.
we have to.
But sometimes I think about the ARPA funds and I feel like we've been a little loose, we, this chunk for that and that chunk for that, but how are they actually going to be spent?
Right. So right now we're in talks with different departments. We're looking at where they are with the projects. And then there could be some potential
Okay.
reallocation, but I can't speak on it
So
right
things
now
are
until
going
it's final.
behind the scenes that we're not aware of. That's,
Yeah.
that's all I need.
So
This year, we are tracking it.
Okay.
We are making sure projects that have been allocated funds through are progressing.
Mhm.
And so we, as Yannick just said, that we are tracking those projects, we're creating a spreadsheet. So we'll create something to give you an update to where those projects are. And I know the finance, they're tracking the spending process of
That's
those
part of our
funds as
budget
well.
process. We'll do.
But we do have some funds that are available for allocation, and we can talk about those things during the budget process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Diaz has had his light on for so long.
Thank you. This is huge and it's super exciting, and I hope this is something that we like proudly share with media. Kind of wish the cameras were still in here, because this is like I look at it, this is a massive investment in our community, and I'm just like really excited looking at the deliverables and the potential with the co-marketing and collaborative. You know, we have so many good partners like Community Partners and Guatemalan Mind Center. This is like phenomenal, and I very vividly remember, you know, Mr. Coward's presentation about, you know, the extremely low default rate on unsecured rates, and it's just like tremendous. So really happy that this is finally coming to fruition.
Great, thank you. Mr. McBoy.
And just to add to that, I was going to mention too, the very low, remarkably low default rate in spite of them being unsecured loans. Their process clearly works very well. The other thing is, and correct me if I'm not remembering right, but I believe that some of the activity, in addition to the very sensible working on the audits and trying to get that into actions, I believe they volunteered to help us with grant applications, at least looking into possibilities, whether they're IRA related to federal money or infrastructure related, things that relate to energy conservation bills, electric, that area. So
I believe that to be the case. I know Doug Coward is standing by, and I'll let Doug comment on that from Solar Energy Loan Fund.
Mr. Coward.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Commission. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here again tonight. The answer is yes. We're anxiously awaiting the final rulemaking on the climate bill. We're very involved with that. And we see several different buckets that the city can potentially go after. And we would like to work closely with the city in trying to secure as many of those federal grant dollars as possible to bring back into the city of Lake Worth Beach. Particularly as we're trying to help low-income people, if we're able to access some of the federal grants to help lower the overall cost and then provide the financial inclusion or unsecured loans to help cover the remainder of those projects. But it'll help make these projects more affordable for low-income people.
No, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, there may also be some proposed involvement in, at least experimentally, targeting landlords as well as residents and owners.
Okay.
Which is
All right.
really exciting too.
So do we do a motion yet?
I don't think so.
Madam Mayor, I do have a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to ask. What's up?
No worries. So the comment is from Ryan Oblander, 1702 North A Street. Good evening. I am virtually addressing the commission as chair of the EUAB. And I would like to point out to the public that we have 2 vacancies on the board, one of them requiring a resident from Palm Springs that has been vacant for a number of years. And we would like to see those seats filled so that all service areas are represented. At our last meeting on April 5th, we were introduced to Executive Director Doug Coward from SELF and spoke at length about the program and the many benefits it would provide to the residents in our community. During the board's discussions last year, we recommended that a program like this be utilized to complement the utilities energy audits by providing a means to obtain funding to act on those audit results, whether it be grants or low interest loans, and even more so, having a dedicated person to serve as a program manager. The board reached a consensus that this program would be a positive benefit to our residents, landlords, and local contractors, and aligns with the recommendations given last year for our city's energy conservation goals. One request from the board was that when hiring the full-time loan officer, that we be given preference to someone who is multilingual and seeing how there is going to be a ramp up period, that the city does whatever it can to get the word out quickly so it can be a success. That is my only comment.
Thank you. Okay, so now do I have a motion
Motion to approve?
by Commissioner, by Vice Mayor McBoy, seconded by
Seconded.
Commissioner Diaz? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. This is great. This is a lovely thing to have happening. I'm very happy about it. Next up is E, which is the FMPA Municipal Solar Phase 3 Project Power Sales Contract, which we did discuss at length on the 25th. Do we have to have a lot more discussion on it, or we can
To approve.
do I have a second?
Second.
But before we go that far, on the motion, I would like to recommend, because we have to choose a participation level. And I would like to recommend, based on the discussions we had with some of the FMPA folks, I think after the meeting, I don't remember now, that we recommend for 30 with the option to go as high as 40 if it's available through FMPA. And the basis for that, which Mr. Liberty and Brian can help us with, is we did some initial, the two of us did some initial analysis of looking at the avoided costs of buying from the supplemental contract, natural gas based, yeah, there you go. As well as some predictions, obviously with some uncertainty, but based on the FMPA information on the ability to recover costs should we have excess solar power.
Do you have a
And
suggestion?
look positive. So between that, I believe if it may be part of the backup, Director Liberty found that if you did the analysis with, I forget whether you used $6 or $6.96, $6 or $7 gas, we actually made money on doing this, and we made more as we went up in the power level. So, and then in addition, Brian was kind enough to work out for us what are the carbon reductions, and to do that kind of to put it in context with what were our carbon emissions from the supplemental contract. And I believe that if I'm not mistaken, if you look at the right two curve, the lower curve and the right curve, the blue is currently what we're doing from supplemental in terms of carbon emissions. And the orange in the one underneath is what we would avoid in carbon emissions if we went with 30. So if you subtract that, and are they the same scale? No, unfortunately,
Yeah.
they're not the same scale.
But do you
but-
have a,
Try to walk you through
what's your
that.
suggestion there in terms of the percentage?
My suggestion is that we ask for 30, but be open to going up to, and I would say 40 if they've got it.
Okay,
And that-
does that
and-
make?
In conversations with FMPA, we think that may be possible to go maybe to 33. What it would require is another group within FMPA to drop their number down slightly to accommodate us. And Susan Schuman is here from FMPA. I think they're willing to do that. I don't think they can commit to that tonight, but they would certainly go back and take a look at that. We could take a little bit more. I think one of the things that we want the public to know, you should all know, is that this, of course, will not only help reduce our purchases on the supplemental contract, which is currently with OUC, but when you look at the 20-year term of the contract, we don't know who it'll be. So certainly it decreases purchases of supplemental energy, and the supplemental energy is generally speaking all fossil fuel. So we would be reducing our purchases of fossil fuel. So as we bring more of these megawatts on, you can see in the top right how much our supplemental energy metric tons of CO2 would decrease by. So as you increase your solar buy, you decrease the metric tons of CO2 that you're receiving under the supplemental contract. Actually, we're not receiving the CO2; they're causing to be created.
Right.
So it's a good thing. And then you can see at the bottom the cumulative reductions go up higher and higher as you add more solar energy. So it's certainly a positive thing.
For the fine print of those numbers, if you go back one, I believe what I'm seeing is that the current supplemental is about 100,000 metric tons a year. I'm guessing that's per year. And then if we went to 30, we would ding that down by about 30,000 metric.
Correct.
So we're knocking off about 30% of it,
Right.
which is not insignificant.
It's rather substantial. If we go back to the beginning of the slide, I think this is very important for the public to see. The bottom line, the blue line, is the solar megawatts that we would be adding to our portfolio. So you can see, make sure it would grow to be as much as if you took 30 megawatts, solar would make about 30% of our portfolio. And this is extrapolating forward to the energy that we expect to be selling in those future years. If you add that to our nuclear component and say that those combination of solar and nuclear is carbon free, you could see that we would get to 64%, 64+% carbon free. I'll point out that this would allow us to do that ahead of the deadline that you all set when you set for the 2045 plan with 60% reduction by 2035. This would actually exceed that and get us there even earlier, which is a step in the right direction.
Another press release.
So yeah, we should definitely talk about that.
Okay, so the motion needs to be revised to put the percentage in.
So I'll amend my motion to approve the 30 megawatts, but with the option to go up to as high as 40 if FMPA can.
Had we had a second?
I'll second that. This is so important. One of the things I was able to do in Alabama was take a tour of a mountainside coal reclamation site and like the damage that was done to that mine and the work needed to fix it. So, these are huge improvements to be really proud of for sure.
And I'll add to that, that goes hand in hand with our commitment to be completely out of the coal business by the end of 2025.
Yep.
We're committed to that unit retirement, and the owner, which is Orlando Utilities Commission, is committed to do that as well.
Do I have a motion? I have a second. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming back, ma'am. Do you come from Orlando? Okay, good.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, next up is
I'm
item
sorry,
F.
Madam Mayor, before you proceed, may I have a motion to extend the meeting until 11?
Motion to extend.
11?
11.
Oh, 11, right, we're at 10. Sure. We have a motion. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
As long as we don't have to stay though.
I oppose it. I think we can do what we need to do in 10 minutes, but all right, thank you. We're gonna go till 11. Because why should I go home? Okay, now up next is the next one, which is the exercise of city's extension rights under the OUC Supplemental Energy and Capacity Agreement. I'm gonna leave you
We
to,
actually vote on the extension?
Yeah.
Did we? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
yeah, I'll go along, but what the heck? We were subtle. It was an agreement, unanimous. I'm gonna run upstairs for a second. You can follow this take this next one for a minute. I'll be right back
Sure.
as vice mayor.
All right. So up next is using our extension rights to the OUC Supplemental Energy and Capacity Agreement. And I'll bet we have a presentation.
Actually, I don't think we have a presentation for this one. It's just conversation.
Okay,
So
that'll do.
Vice Mayor and fellow commissioners, this is an agreement that we have with OUC at the moment. We refer to as a supplemental capacity and energy agreement. We've had such an agreement since about 2013 when the city exited the All Requirements project. OUC has now won this bid twice. We are in the second contract, and that contract called for a 7-year contract period. The 5th and 6th year, we had off ramps. If we chose to use them, we would have to give notice that we had intended to stay, as opposed to give notice that we intended to leave. At this time, we're recommending that we give notice that we intend to stay for another year. The last year of the contract, which is what we'll be talking about next year, both us and OUC have to agree to stay together for the last year. That's the way the contract was structured. This contract has been extremely beneficial to us. It was aggressively competed between 3 parties. OUC was the winning party, obviously. The other 2 were FPL and FMPA, the Florida Municipal Power Agency. starting in January of 2019, if you take a look at what happened with our energy costs, our all-in cost of energy dropped by about $20 per megawatt hour. That was the equivalent of about $9 million a year. So that negotiation, which took place, the bid process and negotiation, which took place in late 2018, yielded a very, very good contract for us. OUC continues to be a good partner. We're happy with the pricing that we're getting. We're happy with the flexibility they have with us. They have had some billing errors, which they've corrected in great detail, information which we have for audit purposes. And, when we think there's an issue, they take it very seriously. They put the team on it, and they've gone back and looked at the nitty gritty of the code and the billing language to make sure they get it correct. So they've been very, very good at that. They've also been more than willing to chat with us about fuel hedging, explain to us how they do their hedging. Our rates, if you take a look at our rates that for our 1,000 kilowatt hour residential customer are very, very close to theirs. We've done a good job, and they've done a good job of serving this contract. So our recommendation to staff would be to exercise this option and give them notice. We have to give them notice by June 1 that we intend to stay in the next calendar year as their customer. If we don't give that notice, the default is that we're not staying, and we have to hurry up and issue another RFP. And we don't know that we don't have a high level of certainty that we would get as good a deal or a better deal if we were going to the market right now.
Okay,
Motion to approve?
do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, sounds good. And I have one little question after we vote on.
Should we
And
wait,
I'll
or-
call for a vote. I guess that's how you do that.
Aye.
Aye, and it's unanimous with the three of us here. Quick question, do we physically meter what comes in from OUC either at this end, or do they meter it as they send it out? How do we know what we're actually getting from them?
It's actually metered at both ends. We meter everything that comes into Hypoluxo, which is our point of interconnection with the FPL transmission system, and they meter how much they put in at the other end.
But aren't they putting in to various people, and aren't we pulling in from so how do you know whose is whose?
The accounting goes back to the actual generation that they produce.
Okay.
And
Someday we'll-
we meter how much comes in at Hypoluxo, and we know exactly how much came from, for example, the St. Lucie project.
Right.
And then, of course, we have line losses that's accounted for.
Right.
But most people don't realize their job is to really supplement our base supply. So as we add so for example, we have a base supply of St. Lucie, and as we add solar to our base,
they come down.
They fill the gap. Their job is to make sure that the bucket is full all the time.
Yeah.
Every hour, plus the reserve margin.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Would you like?
Did you finish?
Yep, we're done.
No, we got item
One
two
more.
still.
Unanimous.
You finished that item?
Yes.
Yep.
Well done. I'm gonna go.
I'm
in.
sorry, I had to pop out. So who made the motion on the second, please?
I made the motion.
And Commissioner Diaz seconded it. And it
Thank
was-
you so much.
All righty, so the last item on our agenda tonight, we might make this out of here by 10. Is work order number 10 with Ellie Myers to complete construction work for the French Avenue Voltage Conversion Project. Mr. Liberty.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is a pretty interesting project on French Avenue, to us in the electric industry on the west side of the city. We'll be going from current overhead construction to underground construction for these two critical circuits that are in that area. For those of you that don't know French Avenue, it borders, there's homes along French Avenue, of course, and then behind the homes, there's a canal. And that canal is Iguana Haven. In iguana heaven. And it is absolutely full of iguanas that love to climb the poles. And we also have a lot of exposure there. So those poles are certainly not rated for Category 5 storm. They need to be upgraded. And it would be very difficult to do that along the canal bank. So what makes more sense for us to do is to take those two feeder circuits that are on those poles, move them to the front of the homes, but take them underground for some distance and then bring them back up on the other side of Congress. So that'll limit our exposure to overhead contacts. It'll avoid affecting some of the old growth trees. There's a few along that route. And then what will happen to the poles in the backyards? Well, the services to the homes will continue to come in from the backyards, but the poles will be topped since the heavier circuits that are currently on top will be gone from those poles. So those poles will be cut shorter and they'll be carrying less weight. and the service poles will remain in the rear of those properties along the canal, but much less exposure than having the primary feeders up at a higher elevation and poles that are not designed for Category 5 storms. And of course, we reduce the exposure to lightning strikes and animal contacts by being able to take that particular section underground.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Next motion,
Motion to adjourn.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
9:55.